you. And so keep your cars clean, dress well, speak well. As some people say, you can actually talk yourself into a tip. And so know some facts about Bermuda. A lot of times what I find is that people are wanting to know about, like, what do the locals do, they say, what do Bermudians do? And they want to go and find those places. And so therefore, do your best, continue to do your best, because is what we do. And very often, if not always, the transport operator is the first person, except for those that are actually at the airport, who you come in contact with once you're on island. They remember whatever you do and whatever you don't do. And so again, let's be encouraging. Certainly now, as we prepare ourselves getting into May, when we have many, many more cruise ships coming on board, school gets out generally throughout everywhere, so you get many people coming in via airlines and whatever. So let's get ourselves ready. As they say, a famous person did say, get ready, get ready, get ready. And so let's get ready for what's going to be a tremendous summer. We also, I'm pretty sure that our largest hotel will open up this year. And so not a full opening, a phased opening. I'll get somebody on to talk about that. But again, that's all part of what we're doing as we prepare ourselves. And I'll say this again, I'll say this now rather, and I'll say it again at the end of the show, which is, if you're out early or late, which means when it's getting dark, please, please, please wear a high visibility vest, a light or something to light yourself up, because I still smile, I guess, or grin or grimace when I see people out early or late in the dark, dressed in all dark, and you can't see them, no matter how much you're paying attention. And so it's always best to ensure that we make ourselves as visible as possible, as early as possible, to avoid any undue challenges. Now, having said that, tonight's show is one of the ongoing conversations that we're having with individuals that are making an impact. The show is still focusing on financial literacy, and so we'll talk also about the financial aspects from our guest tonight. But today is a little bit different. I'm going to learn lots myself also, of course, as we talk about artificial intelligence and robotics. What is it? What is it not? What do we see as the future? What can we do to get involved? What do we need to do to understand? What are the pitfalls? What are the pros and the cons? And what are the positives and negatives? And what does each of those portend for the future, i.e., what do we expect to anticipate from each of these areas, and how they are linked, how they're separated, and all those kind of things. And tonight, we are very pleased to have Ms. Cameron Young present. She is a young Bermudian. I called her in my ad a daughter of the soil, because she is but she is Bermudian. Been here for quite a while, doing her thing, relatively young, I'll say, but she's definitely made her mark already. And in my words, she is setting her own future in the AI space. And so very, very pleased to have you this evening, Ms. Young. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Good evening. Really glad to be here.
Got you. And the question we always start off with is, tell us about who you are, your background, in the way that you would want to know, because we see you in the general public see you in so many different lights. Mm-hmm. In terms, you're a very good student. We know that you're doing robotics from an early age. You've been overseas many times, all those kind of things. But how do you want to be introduced yourself tonight, in your own words?
I guess all of that sounds pretty good. But I think the way I would like to be introduced is as the founder of Tombolo. So I'm the founder and CEO of Tombolo Research. We are an AI and robotics company that's based out of Dubai, which where we're headquartered. And now, I guess, to tell you a bit more about myself, still passionate about science and technology. And now I'm kind of stepping into that education side of things a bit more. So I think that's what I would like people to know about me, is that I'm now stepping more into the education side through my business, and also, but continuing that love of science and technology.
No, that was almost too fast, right? You're young. Then let's go back. Let's talk about education, where you came through, how you got interested in robotics, and then we'll obviously have some more conversations in terms of what you're doing, right? But let's go back a bit in terms of education, how you got interested, and even who would have assisted you in getting more involved in it.
Sure. It all started with my grandfather, to be honest, the late Kenyatta Young.
Okay.
He was a very well-respected trade unionist. Those of you that know him, you already know how he is. Burning Spear.
Yes.
He was the one that gave me my first screwdriver when I was about 3 years old.
Okay.
And in that, he would have me follow him around the house, and I'd be like, okay, Paul, I'm coming with you. And I'd just change little outlet covers. So even before I knew what engineering was, he was trying to introduce it to me. And he would show me how to use a computer and all of that other great stuff. And I was just learning from him as I walked around. So that was really my first, I guess, introduction to like getting educated, and also teaching myself a lot, because he always really encouraged me to read, which became one of my favorite pastimes. So I learned a lot of my curiosity and my passion from him and my mom, because they both really, I guess, like stoked that fire in me. Mm-hmm. So in terms of education, I went to Pritchett Primary for primary school, and then BHS for high school. From there, I went on a gap year, and cultural immersion year, I like to say.
Cultural immersion.
Cultural immersion, 'cause I was trying to learn Spanish, and I did. I became fluent in Spanish, so now I can talk and do all the good stuff. And then, from there, I went to London for my biomedical engineering undergraduate, and then recently I was in Dubai for just about 2 years, only a year for the degree, but I was living there for almost 2 years. I did my master's in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that really kind of just brought me to where I am now, when I've been back home for about 3 weeks now, and trying to really bring what I learned out there and all my experiences back home to Bermuda.
Okay, just a minute. And so you're giving us so much information, right? I'm trying to take notes to the listening audience, and those of you that are on see us on Facebook, you'll see what we're trying to do as I go. So I'm trying to take some quick notes and keep up with her. And what's always interesting is, for a lot of my guests, they come in because they are expert in what they do, and they do blah, 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 not realizing that for the general public, sometimes you got to slow down and go back and really explain in detail, in layman's terms, really, so that people do understand. And so one thing that did trigger that comment was that you did a degree in machine learning, was it?
Yeah, artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Okay, so I want you to talk about that, please. Machine learning. What is that?
Sure. So artificial intelligence, is a study of trying to make computers that can think in the way that we do. So very similar to how, when you have a thought, you picture your little neurons, so the cells in your brain, basically making connections and being able to make decisions. Mm-hmm. So like you're thinking, basically. And that's what the goal of artificial intelligence was, to get these computers that could think. So there was a bunch of scientists and researchers that were doing all these mathematical calculations and theories, and that's how they ended up getting to where we are now, when you see things like ChatGPT. So to break down machine learning a little bit, it's a subset of artificial intelligence. So it's basically looking at how do we teach a machine to learn. So the same way, like I know you have your son.
Yes.
You're teaching him how to grow up. So you teach him what's right from wrong, or you teach him in the way that you want him to go. Like you're teaching him things. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with machine learning. It's thinking like, what are the methods that you would want to use for teaching? And I always bring it back to like raising children. I don't have any, but but I used to be a teacher, and I would see the same things of like watching them learn how to like figure things out, and it was just really interesting. And then when I got into computer science, I noticed some of the same patterns in terms of how the machine would learn. So you'd like show it little colors, and it'd be like, okay, this is good, and you'd say, no, that's bad, no, that's good. And it's just interesting to see that it learns in a very similar way to a child would. So it's pretty interesting. And
so in terms of machine learning, let's talk about that for a minute, right? You're literally talking about I guess it has to be a computer, right?
Yeah, well, it could be a computer. Yeah,
right. And then so what other types of machines will actually learn as you talk about, like?
Well, I guess the subset of everything is a computer, the basis of everything. But it could be like a robot, for example, or your smartphone right now. You'll use a lot of machine learning to learn about you. So it's like looking at the different applications of that technique. So it's a big topic, but it breaks down into a lot of different places.
Right.
So you could have it in your smartphone, like social media, for example, is a great example of machine learning.
Okay.
You hear about the algorithm, and they're like, the algorithm is changing, and it's really just it's a technique of machine learning, where the social media is trying to learn what you like, what you don't like, and show you things based on that.
And we're going to go back and forth with this, right? In terms of, isn't that dangerous though? So for example, if all of us use our phone, right? And if the phone is actually tracking our habits, it can then go and predict both good and bad, or it can actually tell other people both good and bad about us.
100%.
So how do you, what comments do you have generally, and then also in particular for young people?
I think that you're right. It can be quite dangerous, especially if you're a young person, because you don't understand that part of social media. You're like, oh, it knows what I like, but you don't realize the implications of that. That if it knows what you like, the people that have access to that data also know what you like. And that's kind of how things work. Like, you'll find yourself talking on the phone about maybe you want to get a new tent, and then 2 minutes later on Facebook, you see some ads for a tent. It's like, how did I know? It's because it's learning from you and listening and learning in from you. Wow. So that's like the social media aspect of things. So my thoughts on how to keep, especially like young people, safe from that is really awareness for the parents and also for the students themselves. Like having that open dialogue is going to be really important for the child to say, like, this is what I've learned and this is what I've seen. And then for the parent to say, okay, this is why that's happening. And, just having that open dialogue between each other so that you can keep talking and learning from each other. And that way, because there's no way for parents to keep up with children at this point. Right. They're always a mile ahead of you. But if you keep up that conversation and open dialogue, then hopefully you'll be able to like keep an eye on them a little bit more.
And I'll tell you, I think I've said this before on air, right? That for me, what is I guess scary in a general sense is that anybody that's say less than age maybe 25, they will know and have more access to anything much more than a person that's say age just 5 years, say someone that's age 30. And lo and behold, if somebody's like under 35, 45, 50. And so for me, that's always been it's a realism, but also a danger. And I told my daughter my son actually, a long time ago, that at about age, maybe say 16, I think it was, maybe 16, I think it was maybe 18. At that point in time, they knew more than I would ever know, and they have access to so much more information. And so my question to you in that regard is, how do you personally manage that tremendous amount of information? And what do you recommend for parents of children, or children themselves again, to manage that, or to recognize, or to understand the good and the bad in that?
I think that's a great question, actually. It's like I hadn't even thought about it like that, now that we have so much more access to information than you all did. And it makes sense. Like, I remember my mom would always tell me, like, when I was doing assignments with my laptop, this is like way before AI, of course.
Sure.
And I'm on Google, I'm like just like looking for things. And she's like, I had to go to the library and find a textbook. And it was all like very set, because it's what was printed was the information that you had. Versus now, it's like you have access to the internet. So it's not just reputable people that are posting information. It's also people that may not have the best intentions, or that may have good intentions, but not necessarily the knowledge to teach you what you're looking for properly. So I think it's that kind of in between that also becomes a bit of a danger, I would say, especially for young students, because they don't always have the critical thinking skills to know, like, okay, this is bad information, or like how to even judge if something is good or bad information for themselves. So for me, I think it's important for young people as well to kind of know that they have this information, that they have access to so much more, especially with AI. It opens it up the door, like a Pandora's box, I would say, so much more than it would have been for me when I was just growing up with the internet. Because now with AI, it's like, it's crawling over the internet, it's reaching out to other people, it's learning from you at the same time. So it's like social media and the internet at the same time. So it can be considered a bit worrying, really, for children to have access to this kind of information. But the good thing is that parents have the same access now. So it's like we all have access to the same tools. It's just that we need to make sure that we are, like I said, that open dialogue and really talking about it. Because I feel like most parents are trying to keep it hush hush, and like, oh, the student doesn't know, but they do, because they're talking to each other about it. They're learning from videos that they see online, and it's just good to ask them, like, hey, what do you think about this? And you'd be surprised what they can answer you back with.
Wow. And even you just said in terms of we all have access to the same information, which is correct. However, the ability for young people to access it appropriately, not appropriately, but I guess efficiently,
faster,
is much more than the parents.
True.
And so how do you manage that? Because even, for example, I smile in terms of many people will buy the newest iPhone, for example, but the reality is the majority don't even use it to its maximum.
That's true.
Certainly for an older person, young people will. And so how do you manage that in terms of making sure that, well, how do you recommend, I guess, for parents to keep up with it?
The cool thing about AI is that you can actually ask it questions. So you couldn't really do that with the internet as much as you can with AI now. Like, you can ask it, like, hey, how do I use you? And it will actually tell you, like, how to interact with it and how to speak with it more. So you can ask it, like, if I was such and such age, how would I use you? And it would answer you back to see, like, how the students are using it, because it has that kind of data of how, like, people of different ages are using it. So you can ask it really to kind of stay on top of that as well. For older people, I like to think of AI as more accessible than the internet, because with the internet, you have to really, like, know and understand how to search. With AI, you can ask it a simple question, and it will probably give you, like, something that you can at least start off with and start to play with. And now a lot of them have voice to text as well.
Yes.
You don't have to know how to type with that. That was something that I heard recently on Friday. Someone was saying that not a lot of people have typing skills.
Yes.
Which I think is still, like, a huge problem. But at the same time, with AI, you can talk to it now. So that kind of hopefully lowers the barrier a little bit more, so that people can actually start using it in different ways. So I think in that way, it's more like using the technology and remembering that it can also teach you how to use it, which is pretty interesting and exciting and something we didn't have before.
Okay. To the listening audience again, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday evening for another edition of Insight. Our guest this evening is Miss Cameron Young, who is a young person. I keep saying young person, relatively speaking now, because she's old. She's not old, but she's old in terms of experience and what she's been doing thus far. especially in the areas of AI and robotics. And we're having a good conversation about this. We'll go on for maybe 30 minutes or so, and then obviously the lines will open up. You can call us. You can call us on 538-8683, or you can WhatsApp me on 538-8683, but you can call in on 297-1027. And others are already sending messages directly on Facebook, but also on, again, via WhatsApp on 538-8683. And so we'll continue in that vein. You mentioned just now in terms of AI and how it works. Oh, man. I'm going to take this call real quick, audience, just to see where we're at. Good evening, caller. Welcome to sorry. So somebody call. You can call back if you choose. I just want to make sure that everything's okay for today. So I will take that call if you do call back. There's a message for you, by the way. It says, "Hi, Cam, from your mother." But anyway, we'll leave her alone and just do what she's got to get done. I was going to ask in terms of, you said that AI crawls the internet and otherwise, right? Can you explain to us a little bit how AI actually works?
Sure. Let me think about it for a second.
Sure, no worries.
Break it down. The way I like to think about explaining it, because I had to simplify it for myself as well when I was learning this just last year,
sure,
was that most of the way that AI really started was with a lot of predictions. So think about probability. So, if this happened, what's the chances of XYZ happening? Mm-hmm. So these LLMs that we have, like ChatGPT, all started based on these probabilities. So it's like, if, for example, you say hi, and, potentially the next word could be Cameron, or, hi, everyone, or good morning, everyone. Predicting that next word mm-hmm. is how the AI really works, for the LLM at least. So their whole job is prediction. The LLM. So LLM, sorry, too many terms. LLM stands for large language model, mm-hmm. which is what ChatGPT is. So it's basically just a big database of words,
yes.
and it's able to predict which word you're going to want it to say next. So if you ask it a question, then it'll say, okay, maybe you want it to write a story, mm-hmm. and it'll say, okay, the dog went on. So each word that it's saying to you, it's predicting what it thinks you want to hear. So it's kind of trying to guess what you want it to say, and that's the words that end up popping up. That's really kind of the basic version of how ChatGPT works, mm-hmm. but it's generating these words. So when they say that these are generative models, it means that they're kind of predicting that next word and trying to guess what you want it to say next. And they're getting really good at this because they have huge amounts of data. So for those of you that don't know, artificial intelligence basically runs on data. So if you give it a bunch of data, then it's able to train on that and learns much more than it would if you gave it a smaller data set. So you call the more data you give it, the smarter it gets. Really. Mm-hmm. And so that's what on a basic level, that's how they go. So you basically give them a ton of data, and then they're able to learn from that and really answer you better, depending on what kind of data and tools they have access to.
And so, and actually, what's been interesting, I guess, for me is going to be, how do you know that the information that comes back is actually true?
That is a great question, and that's why we have to really be careful when we're using these systems, and mm-hmm. also why I wanted to bring awareness back home. It's because most people aren't careful about what it gives them back, because I've noticed that a lot of people just use it like a Google search, and they trust what it's giving back to them, but sometimes it's not always accurate. And that's where things like your critical thinking comes in, especially for young students, which is where I see it the most. I remember I had a student for tutoring, and I asked her how she knew something, and she was like, "Oh, chat told me." And she said it as if it was the most natural thing, and as if it was a person. She said, "Oh, chat told me."
Right.
I was believing it 100%. And no, you got to check it. You do your own research and look into it a bit more. So that's another thing that I think young people have to be aware of, and then also parents and teachers, because the students are using this technology without necessarily understanding how it works. And then also just how to use it and think critically with it, mm-hmm. which is why I think it's important that we teach them that. There's a quick little segue. I'm actually having a course starting on Saturday for students, and it's meant to teach them about things like this. So how to think critically when they're using it, how to study with it, but then also later how to build things with it as well. Because a lot of students have seen that too. So they're looking at, how can I build stuff with this? Mm-hmm. And then I want them to be safe when they're doing that, because it's such a powerful tool. And I think that sometimes they underestimate that. So it's important for them to really understand it, so that they know what's coming out of it. They have to really double check and be sure about. Mm-hmm. And then also for parents to know that, okay, your student is trusting this thing 100%. So they're using it, and they don't really necessarily always think to check it. Mm-hmm. They're okay, well, chat said that, and they'll be cool with that and keep working. The same way, if you see something on Google or Facebook, you're oh, okay, I saw that on Facebook, and mm-hmm. you're cool with it. But you have to still keep those critical thinking skills and make sure that you are really double checking it. for the course, it starts on April 25th, and it'll be from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m.
And don't worry, tell your mother, I'll give you a chance to talk with your courses. I know it's
You know her
to
marketing
listening
right
audience,
there.
right? Let me just smile a minute to the listening audience that it's wonderful with all of us, right? In terms of our young people, I call them, that there are parents and others that provide guidance and influence. And so part of what I do here also is to allow persons to fully express themselves. That's why I don't do questions in advance, because I want to have a natural conversation. And so there are a couple of things I'm going to talk to you about in terms of you, the teacher, the course you're doing, how they're similar, how they're different. I want to also ask things about, again, I'm going to go back into your academic background, because people don't understand it, myself included in some respects, not what you do, but I'm just generally speaking, so I'm going to ask lots of questions around that. And there'll be time to talk more particularly about what's happening. I also want to talk about the speech you gave on Friday, what that was, what it isn't, and also ask questions in terms of the government reception to you and what your plans are. So all those things we have time to ask as we go forward. And so with a smile, I'll tell Mommy she can relax. We'll get around to all those things, make sure you get through all of your speaking points. So one question I have though is this. And obviously I'll be patient about this, in terms of what does AI do in terms of the future of learning? As an example, I was in New York at some point in time, and I went to a parking garage. I don't speak Spanish, and the person I was talking to does not speak English at all, right? But I was able to speak in English, and they had an app that would almost simultaneously translate that to Spanish. And so, as an example, that means that I don't have to learn Spanish. All I have to do is just get the app and just talk normally, and it'll translate simultaneously. And so that's a small example. But in a larger context, what does AI say to the future of learning, though? Because we can almost, it's unfair, but in my words, become lazy about learning because we don't have to learn anymore in some contexts.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a great example, especially the languages, because that's something that I've also seen from other friends of mine that will go around with Google Translate quite a lot. That was the original real-time translation that you would use while you're traveling. And you're right, nowadays it feels as though you're not going to really need to learn as many things because the AI will know everything.
Yes.
But in my humble opinion, I think that it's not necessarily true. I think in cases like languages, maybe fine. You don't necessarily need to know, but at the same time, if you have an understanding of the language yourself, then there might be things that you hear, for example, that a person says, like little colloquialisms that you wouldn't get from the AI because it may not necessarily have been trained on that kind of vocabulary. That's just one specific example.
Sure.
Because like I said, the AI is trained on data. So if it doesn't have all the data about you, then it won't be able to understand you. Actually, I have a funny story of me trying to do this translate. It wasn't a translation, but it was my uncle. I did an interview of him. He's one of my grandpa's best friends, and he's very thick Bermudian accent.
Okay.
So I did a recording, and I was going to upload it to my AI to get it to transcribe it for me so I could do some editing. And it didn't understand a thing that he said because it was very confused and it had never heard the Bermudian accent before. So even though he's speaking in English, it doesn't really understand it, and it thinks he's saying something that he's not. So that's a good example of why the learning is so important, because if I didn't already know what he said, then I'd be trusting the AI and thinking that, he's saying X, Y, Z, but really he said something else entirely. So and I think that the future of learning is really more that we really need to understand things in order to double check the AI, because like I said, you don't want to 100% trust what it says. You want to be able to think critically for yourself and then question it, because it's so important to challenge these systems. Because they're very new. They're not very new. The technology is relatively old, but they're new to us. So it's important to double check what's being used, and then also where you're getting the information from. It's a lot of different things we'll talk about today, I guess.
But going forward, for example, okay, so let's just say even for your uncle's voice, right? Yeah. It didn't understand today. 10 years from now, yes, it will, because as you see it, it's more and more access, and so I guess the scary thing I guess is going to be that. At some point in time, it will know so much, or even now, it may know, for example, 90%. And is 90% instantly available acceptable, as opposed to 100% 2 weeks from now?
Well, I think that what I actually find it that little part of you saying in 10 years it will understand. But the interesting thing is that if we're not included in these data sets, then it won't understand us.
Yes.
And that's the scary part of it. It's that if you're not included in the data set, then you will be you won't be included in those models. Even when it gets that 90%, if you're the 1%, then you never get included because it's not worried about connecting to you, and that's where the developers become really important. So I think I'll push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
In 10 years, it might. if we're included now. That's where it becomes important. Because if we're not included now, then it's not going to know to train and focus on us a bit later.
And so if we use, I guess, a more broad example, is Bermuda is a very small, 65,000 people, whatever you want to call it, 60,000, let's call it, right? Against the millions in the world. And so it's possible for AI to develop without nothing at all about Bermuda, let's say, as an example. Yeah. And in that context, you're right. So 10 years from now, nothing about Bermuda would be part of the AI data set. However, given how small we are, is that not relevant? Is it almost irrelevant? Because guess what? We're going to make such a small difference in the data set that it goes with what we have.
Well, that's true. But, again, thinking about it from our, as Bermuda, you want to be included. You want to make sure that you're being understood. And I think that it could have drastic consequences if even small communities like Bermuda, outside of us, are not included in the data sets. And it could have consequences in terms of when AI becomes really mainstream, in healthcare and the classroom. And then we try to bring that technology back here and we try to use it. It'll be like, oh, I don't actually recognize you very well. Or I can't really understand what you're saying because I've never seen that accent before. It'll generalize, basically, which is basically generalization is when it hasn't seen it. So it just kind of guesses and tries to bring it into what it already knows. So it'll just make assumptions about what it's seen rather than actually fully understanding it. So that's like something that it does as well. So you don't want it to make assumptions about you. Right. You want it to have seen you before and understand not you necessarily, but your culture and understand you. So that when you go to it for health advice, it's not like, oh yeah, I've seen that person before. That was this, and actually it's something much more rare or serious. So it's things like that I think are going to be important, which is why I'm even the small groups like us need to be included in the technology because otherwise we will be left behind.
And that's a big point. We're going to come to that for sure about healthcare because I know that you have an interest, if not expertise, in the healthcare aspect, right? And part of tonight, of course, is to make sure as best we can that we provide information to everybody that's listening, and they can then go off and find more information as they go. But the question I want to go to before that is, what do we do? What do you recommend, or what's your experience, I guess, in terms, not you personally, but to avoid students cheating? Because you whatever your questions are, homework, let's say, right? You put it in ChatGPT or whatever you're going to be using, ask the question, and even though you may not take exactly what it says, you can actually use 90% of it again, change the words, and boom, there's your homework done without having to learn. So, what's been your experience, exposure, even your training around that? How do we manage that?
That's been actually pretty interesting. So I can give it to you from two perspectives. One is my own university, which we're all AI students. So everybody's like, we're going to use AI for something, not necessarily to answer our questions, but we're going to use it to study or to be able to break down these teachers' notes. So they actually ended up for my thesis coming out with a policy around that. And it was you're allowed to use AI, but you need to tell us how you used it, when you used it, and why, which I thought was really interesting because I'd never seen that before of having to tell it okay, I used this machine for that. Just say, I used this to write my code, or I used this to write this little sentence because I wanted to break it down a bit more. So in that case, they were really just kind of giving us free rein, but they wanted to know how we were using it and when. So it wasn't considered cheating in that case. It was more considered using our tools to our disposal.
Yes.
And then for younger students, because I do some tutoring as well. Not going to rat any of you guys out.
No, fine.
But I had one student that was like, oh yeah, I was running a bit late on this assignment, so I just used chat. And I'm like, and then? She's like, oh yeah, I boofed it up a little bit. There's some systems that they can use to make it sound more human. Right. So that the teacher doesn't know it's written by the AI. It's written by, it seems like it's written by them, but really it's just chat wrote it. They give it to the system that makes it sound more human, and then they're able to submit that. The teacher, of course, doesn't know that this is a thing. So, it's not that my student submitted it because I stopped her, but it was just an interesting way that they've thought about it because they've seen other people online do it, and there's TikToks about this, and they're like, oh yeah, this is how I got around it, and it's just there's a whole different narrative around this thing. It's oh yeah, just use that, make it sound more human. But they're not encouraging the students to do it themselves. They're teaching them about little tools or websites where you can get it to do it for you. So I think the cheating is going to be really interesting. But for me to go around it, it would be for the teachers to become more creative with how they ask questions and assignments for students, because otherwise the students are just going to go around you every time.
Right. And even as you say now, it's sometimes people will obviously use ChatGPT in particular. That's a common one, of course. And many times people will say that is obviously a chat thing because it comes across as being is not as soft or whatever. It doesn't have that human piece of it, right? But it's just saying no. Obviously, there is a field to say now. Let's take ChatGPT stuff and make it more human. And so my concern again becomes for all of us now is that what impact will it have on human learning going forward? Because if you can get it to do all those things, submit it to a teacher, guess what? The work's done. Except, of course, for students, it would be a matter of if you do that all the time, I'm going to give you a test in front of me that you cannot use any devices, and that way you're obviously going to fail because you don't know what you're doing.
You've never seen it.
So gotcha. Okay, good. And then now I'm going to go back. I want to go back in terms of your academic training because I want you to be able to explain it so that we all understand what you've done, and I'm going to come up and ultimately talk about you and robotics. I know you've actually designed robots, but let's go back so we can better understand what training was required to get you to a point whereby you can actually develop robots.
Sure.
For what I know offhand, it's BHS was a big part of it, the exposure. So let's start there and then come forward in terms of really how did Ms. Cameron get to a point whereby she can actually design a robot.
So I think honestly, rather than like necessarily being the school that I went to, I was really lucky in the fact that I had my mom to encourage all my curiosities.
Okay.
Because like I said, my grandfather was the one that introduced me to engineering, even without telling me what it was. Like he was teaching me how to change outlet covers, and then about the computer as well. So just by being around him, I was just like really interested in learning all these technology things. So I was learning how to do Excel, and just like on a very basic level, I was having a great time. I thought I was playing computer games, but really he was teaching me how to use it. And then my mom would always encourage that curiosity. So it took me to science because I would bring home like little caterpillars and random sea anemones as my pets.
Whoa.
And she'd be like, what is that? But instead of like telling me to throw it away, she's like, well, how are you going to take care of it? So I'd have to go research how am I going to take care of this thing? And do I need to how do I do that? So that really kind of fostered that curiosity and for me, which I didn't know would help me do in the research, but it did a lot later. So when I got interested in computers and robotics, I had already had that kind of mindset of, okay, if I want this to happen, then I'm going to have to look up how I'm going to do that. Which is great because they had encouraged that for me a lot. So then when opportunities came up at school, I was able to say like, okay, yeah, this is something I'm interested in. Like even if I didn't necessarily have the skills at the time, I knew that I could teach it to myself by either reading about it or like watching a video or something. So that's kind of how it went for me. Yeah, and then that took me to a lot of different places. So it took me to a first global robotics competition, which at first is an acronym. I cannot remember what the acronym was. But basically, we got introduced. It was myself and another friend at BHS, and she was like, "Let's do this robotics competition." I was like, "Oh my goodness, that sounds so cool!" So we went, and we were the all-girls team for the first year. And that was in Washington D.C. So we were representing Team Bermuda.
Wow!
Yeah, it was really great.
Team Bermuda.
Team Bermuda.
Okay.
So there was 6 of us girls, and we all went and we competed. It was 157 countries worldwide, and there were only 6 all-girls teams. And we came first out of all 6 of them, even though it was our first time doing all this robotic stuff. And I think we were about 69th overall. So out of that many countries, like little Bermuda came out pretty good in the end, like for people that hadn't done it before. So that was my first kind of taste of beyond the reef in terms of my education, of seeing like, oh my goodness, like there's people from all over the world that are interested in this. Because when I was into it, there really weren't that many of us that were like, I wouldn't say nerdy like me, that were like, I love science, I love tech. It was more like I'm going to be in the business, or I want to be in like creative, like, drama kind of thing. So I didn't see any other little nerds when I was growing up. So that was really kind of cool that when I went away, I got to see people that were just as excited about it as I was. So that also really like kept me motivated and sparked. So when I got back home, I was like, I want to do this again. We went the next year.
Okay.
So yes, that was in Mexico City. So thanks to my Spanish, I was able to help my team. So when we were going around, there was like nobody else spoke Spanish. So I had to order stuff at restaurants or talk to other teams in Spanish as well, which was really cool. So that helped me to see like, okay, I want to learn Spanish.
So you learned Spanish at what age, you think? When you like not at least rudimentary?
That was in probably like almost high school, because I started in middle school and it was okay, but it wasn't that great. Right. But high school is where I really got to start using it a lot more. And then finally I did the gap year, so the cultural immersion year, because I wanted to become fluent. I was like, this is a really useful language. My mom's probably laughing right now because she wanted me to do, I wanted to do French. And then she was like, absolutely not, you're doing Spanish. And that's how it ended up, because she had that experience from NBC Sports where she was the only one that spoke English and everybody else spoke Spanish. She's like, that's not happening to you. And so and Spanish ended up being a lot more useful for me because I speak it way more than I speak French.
Got you. And so I guess the message to us parents, actually, or grandparents in some cases, would be not to discourage the quote unquote messing around at a young age in terms of the curiosity, because you keep on reinforcing now is that, one second, hold on, caller. What you keep on reinforcing is the fact that it's that early curiosity with the animals, the little insects really, that most parents would say no. Did you ever take them a frog, by the way?
Luckily, no.
Because that's in my mind, like that's the whatever. But anyway, so we'll see what. So I'll come back to you in a minute. But let's just take this call and then we'll come back. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Insight. What's your question or comment? How you doing? Turn your radio down first, please.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you?
I just wanted to speak a little Spanish to the young lady.
Ah.
Okay.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Muy bien, nada más aquí relajando, manejando carro.
Wow. Qué bien, qué bien. Estoy aquí hablando en el radio.
Okay, bueno,
right.
Bueno, mucho gusto en tus viajes y todo eso.
Okay, well done. Now translate. Now translate. Come back to English.
He was saying he's relaxing, and he said good luck on all of my journeys and trips later.
Okay, thank you, caller.
Thank you, dear.
All right.
No worries. Did you have a question or comment, or that was it?
No, I just wanted to say hi.
Okay, thanks. No problem.
All
right, thanks.
Okay, bye. That was the caller just trying to show off. But no, I shouldn't say that, because that's interesting for sure. So it's us as parents to encourage our young persons in terms of their exploration and whatever the case may be, because that's what got you into it.
Yeah.
And of course, the going overseas at a young age will also, as you said, expose you to others that were equally excited about what you were doing from the, in the science space, and that kept you going.
Yes, definitely. So it was that, like, my mom and my grandfather allowing me to be curious and to really just kind of follow my dreams and passions was really that spark for me. Or I should say the catalyst, really, that got me into science and engineering. Because then later when I was trying to do it, I had the confidence to say, this is what I'm interested in, and then help me to look for people in that field. So thanks to them, I was able to kind of get more into it, and then also gain that experience and not be, ashamed of my interest, because that was another thing that I noticed for some people.
Wow. You're ashamed of your interest?
Because being a nerd was not a popular thing.
Right, no, but so I mean,
it was like when I told people, I'm super into science, they'd be like, that's so boring, you're such a nerd. And it was like a negative thing, but now I tell them and they're like, that's so cool, oh my goodness. So it's been a completely different shift. So I'm just glad that they gave me that confidence when I was younger, because otherwise I may not have continued in it if I was feeling a bit shy about it. Well, so it was good.
Well, what I would say from what you said just now actually is interesting that you took your curiosity about, for example, how to take care of the insects, which made you do research. And what you said is that gave you more confidence when you got older to know that you could, research would be the thing. And you could always research it, read about it, look on a video, and learn about whatever you wanted to. And that then gave you the confidence to get to where you are now.
Yeah, 100%. Which is great. And then just for people that may not have already known, so I did the first genetic study on the island, and that was under the mentorship of Dr. Karika Weldon, because we were looking at the TAS2R38 gene and how if somebody had that, then they're meant to be more perceptive towards bitter taste. And then and we were assuming that they might cover that up with sugar. And then we were like, okay, there's a lot of diabetes on the island. Is that a potential link?
Whoa.
So that's what we did I was 16 when I did that.
Right.
And that was all gained thanks to that curiosity that my mom and my grandfather had fostered in me, because it transformed in class instruction, and it now kind of serves as that blueprint for other different research, genetics research on the island. So looking at that, it's for the parents that are listening, that little spark that somebody might have, that your child might have when they're younger and they're interested in this thing. Make sure that you fan those flames.
Yeah, you encourage it, yes.
Keep encouraging it, because you never know where it'll take you, and it's just really exciting and great. That little bit of curiosity is what brought me to where I am now.
And how did the study go in terms of, was there any lasting implications? Or
it was great. We didn't make any publications. I was only 16. I was 17 when it finished, and I got actually invited by Oxford and the University of, I believe, Greenwich, to go and study with them for at least over the summer. But I wasn't 18, so I wasn't able to pursue it. So it was just we did 400 participants. I presented at the Bermuda Principals Conference to 100 international scientists. And then later, it became a blueprint. So when other international scientists came back at that time, they'd be like, well, has Bermuda even seen this kind of research? And they were like, well, yeah, Cameron Young, when she was 16, she did this. And people were like, this was the reaction for it. So we had about 400 participants. We did find that link. So there was a very small link, at least, that, a lot of people in Bermuda have that gene. And then those people also tended to have diabetes, which was really interesting to see. So, yeah.
And so that's a good point in terms of, it'll be interesting that if we consume access sweet because of the primary inclination toward bitter stuff, and that would then translate to disease later on. So that's interesting. Okay, and so now, where you want to go next in terms of the next field of study?
Right.
Was it into robotics purely, or what happened next?
So from that, I had done robotics purely, and then I did science purely with the genetics, and that's when I thought I used to think I wanted to be a geneticist, which is actually a story I told at the speech that I gave on Friday. So I'll wait till we get to that to tell you about it. But that kind of culminated in me wanting to do medicine, and so I still want to be a surgeon and robotics engineer. But of course, if you Google that, there's no degree that says, okay, you'll be a surgeon and robotics engineer at the end of this. So there was a TED Talk here in Bermuda where Dr. Ayanna Howard, she came to my school at BHS and gave a speech, and I was able to go up and meet her afterwards because I was so excited. Cause she was a black researcher from Georgia Tech, and I was like, this is my moment to meet somebody that looks like me and within the space. So I asked her, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, do you guys have this? And she's like, no, but you can study biomedical engineering. And I was like, what's that? And I didn't ask her. I just tried to play it cool. I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So I went home, Googled it, and it looked like it had a lot of the things that I wanted because it had the science, but it had the engineering, and there were supposed to be aspects of robotics as well. So this is perfect. So after my cultural immersion year in Sevilla, Spain, packed up my bags and went to London to study that. Which was an interesting transition because when I went, COVID was almost at its peak because I went in 2020 was when I went to London from Spain. So I was trying to get this funny story, just me trying to get to the airport just as it's closing. I'm like, please, I have to go study.
Wow.
Don't close the gates. So made it over, and that's when I started studying biomedical engineering. So that was I think that was probably one of the best experiences for me was because it was everybody was into what I was into, and also everyone was very competitive as well. So it kind of helped with that challenge. That curiosity turned into competitiveness as well. So it's I'm really good at this, but I also want to show other people that we could team up together and collaborate more. And I was meeting people from different industries that I was interested in. And that also led me to do this podcast called Cameron's Lab. So from that, I was trying to help other young students because I remembered that I was, the only one that was interested in this, genetics and science and engineering that looked like me, so on the island. So I thought I would make this podcast because I was meeting all these people, and I was like, well, I have no one to share this with, so I would make the podcast to do interviews with them, and then hopefully the students would watch it and get to learn a bit more about some of the fields that they were interested in.
Gotcha.
So that was what I ended up doing while I was in my undergraduate. There were some other things as well, but I'll let you ask your next question.
Okay, no, that's fine. Again, to listen audience, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday evening for this is a wonderful conversation and with Ms. Cameron Young, who is I want to call you an expert, by the way, but anyway, who has expertise in both artificial intelligence and robotics. And so now I want to talk to you a little bit more about this biomedical thing that you went through to understand how all these things ultimately going to impact what you're doing now.
So it's actually funny. So for students that are listening or parents, what you choose at your GCSEs will really determine what you get to do at university. So for me, I did biology, chemistry, IT, math, not business. I did IT, English, math, Spanish, and then I did chemistry as well. So that was what allowed me to, that was for my IB. And then for my GCSEs, I got 7 A's and 2 B's, which was really helpful when I got to university because I had done, all the core subjects, I had A's in them.
Okay.
So when I went to university, it was I had already had that foundational knowledge that was quite strong. And then biomedical engineering was a whole nother ballgame entirely because it wasn't just biomed like I thought. It was the intense physics and math and a little bit of computer science as well that I hadn't really been exposed to quite yet. So I had a lot of learning to do. But again, that curiosity really led me to just continue to research around it and keep on going. So that was really good. So that degree, in case you haven't seen it, or maybe you might be interested in trying it out, is basically you are studying at the intersection, I would say, of medicine and engineering. So on the one hand, you're thinking, how can I heal people with this? But on the other hand, you're how do I build it from scratch and keep it, safe and good for people to use and compatible with the human body? So it's you're looking at the engineering of the human body itself, as well as the material or the robot that you're trying to build for the body to use.
Hold on. So the bio was the natural chemistry pieces or the science piece of it.
Chemistry.
Right.
And the medical was more those two together to look at the human health. And then the engineering was from the human bodies, the fluid mechanics and the biomechanics, and then looking at also the different materials or different like mechanical things that you might build to be able to like have the body use it. So like a hip replacement was something we focus on a lot.
So for example, the biomed engineering.
Yes.
So the engineering piece would have you understand how the body works, and then to improve or to almost, to improve hip replacement or any joint or any body part.
I just gave that as an example,
Sure.
but it's like the body in general. So it's a really diverse field. So if you're interested in medicine and engineering, I think that's probably the best thing for you to study because you get to see it all. So with hip replacements, we were looking at like prosthetics and robotics. We looked at materials engineering a little bit as well. So like things like surgery or like different bandages and things that you could make for a person. We even got to look at the brain quite a lot as well. So like doing things that you could put in somebody's brain or helping people out during brain surgery or even like Alzheimer's, things like that. It got really broad. So we were really looking at the medical field in general and then how we can solve problems, which is what engineers do. They just really just try to solve problems.
Okay, and so in this context, just to be clear, that your engineering focus at that point was on repairing the body.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. And ultimately, I'm going to come to the question in terms of that's your next piece, your master's degree, right? But I want to understand now, how does all this stuff package together to have you do something now and into the future,
right,
now that you finished school to this degree?
So honestly, when I went into it, so as you know, I was trying to do the surgery and then also robotics at the same time. So I spent the whole 4 years that I was there waiting to build robots. And then unfortunately, they only gave me one robotics course in the last year for one semester. I was so disappointed because I was waiting for the robots for so long and then nobody actually built one with me. I did do my thesis in it, so I was able to build a myoelectric prosthetic.
What is that?
What's it say?
Sure.
It's basically a prosthetic hand. So if you have lost your arm or your just maybe from the wrist down, this thing will be able to read the signals in your muscles, like your intended movements, and it can read those signals and then move accordingly. So like if you want to grab a cup of water, then the prosthetic would understand that you're trying to move certain muscles and then grab the cup for you. So it's like a connection between the body and then the part itself using the muscle signals. So it's looking at the electrical signals from that. And then what I was helping to build was that itself, but then also looking at the this part of it called tactile sensing. So at the time, there were no really like prosthetics on the market, at least, that were building prosthetics with tactile sensing. So tactile sensing is like your ability to sense touch. Like, you hug your child or you're picking up your lipstick and that feedback that you feel from that sense of touch is something that the prosthetics just didn't have. And they were super expensive as well without this. So they were about like hundreds of thousands of dollars for you to buy one and you can't even feel anything with it. So for ours, we were building it so that we could have that tactile sensing and then also haptic feedback. So when you touch something, then you get like some kind of feedback that says, okay, you picked that up, like a little vibration or something. That's what we were doing. It was really exciting. So it was like a combination of my love of robotics with my love of medicine. And that was my first kind of introduction to it.
And so what has happened with that? I mean, is somebody else still carrying on trying to develop it, or was it developed, or what's happening?
So we built it, but we weren't able to test it in the way that we wanted because there was a lot of teammate drama, which I'll say for the students. So that was like, make sure that you choose your teammates wisely and that you stay on top of them. So it's going to be a lot of project management for like the university students that are about to choose their thesis team. Make sure that you pick the right people because it really does impact how you're able to finish the project. So for me, I finished the research and then used that to get into my master's degree. And then that also just led me to continue with that research again. So I'd still do it in my free time, like doing more research into it, but hopefully I'll be able to pick it up a bit later.
So at this stage, you were involved in the development of, I want to call like a new hand sort of thing.
Basically.
And then I know this is not really what we're talking about anyway. My question though is, how did you understand the signals from the muscles and how does that then translate to an actual operating hand?
So in that case, you're going from electrical signal to a physical output. So there's these things called actuators. So basically, once you get that electrical signal, your job as the engineer is to kind of do a little bit of translating. So we're talking about this like language translation, but in this case, it's like bioelectric. So like looking at electrical signals, coming out of your muscles and turning that into a physical output. So that was like my whole job was to like be able to read those signals and figure out, okay, if it's coming from this muscle, then the person probably wanted to move this finger. So like we had to do a lot of research into what were the tendons in the hand and what were the muscles that are moving. So like if I move my hand right now, what muscles in my forearm are moving, what muscles in my bicep are moving, like what's all of that. And then put all that together and get it to turn into what we wanted the hand to do.
Wow.
So like looking at different gestures was a really big thing. So that's also where I started learning about AI. Because with AI, with machine learning, really, that was what we were looking at. So the subset again,
Sure.
was trying to teach it how to recognize these different gestures. So if we gave it like a couple of signals that we had done, so we would do like a gesture like a fist or a peace sign, and then get it to recognize which one was happening. And that's how we ended up getting it to be able to do things like pick up a cup.
Oh, okay, so
like
you had
trying to translate it
you
and
almost
teach it.
became like the AI in terms of test it, add that to data set, test it,
Yes.
and then
Exactly. So you have to keep building it up in order for it to be actually useful. Because otherwise, if you don't give it enough data, then it can't really learn from it very well, and it starts to generalize. Overfit. So overfitting is when the model learns something too well. So it's just focused on that one example. If you give it anything else, it won't be able to understand it. It'll be like, what is that? Like, if you're learning a language and then somebody suddenly starts speaking to you in a different dialect, then you don't get it. So it's like that for the model when it overfits.
And so how far did you guys get along before your team dissipated or like?
We didn't get to go very far, to be fair. We got it to do quite a few different gestures. So like we did the fist, the peace sign, grab a cup. And then we didn't have enough motors to be able to get it to pick it up, but we were almost there. So that was what we got to do. So we got to do that. And then myself and my other teammate were working on the tactile and haptic feedback. So when you touch it, basically I made the sensor out of paper. So again, it doesn't have to be expensive to do robotics either. So the sensor, like when you press it on different parts, it's able to tell where you're pressing it. And then based on that, it could give you some kind of feedback. So what he had was a few vibration motors and then also some like pumps, like air pumps to be able to like puff up this little silicone thing that we made. So like depending on where you're placing it, we had a band on your arm, so you'd feel a vibration or a little bit of pressure from the silicone part. So that's really as far as we got with it.
Wow. And so if you had to guess about it, right, or give a guesstimate, how much more time or money or whatever would you need to get this preliminary hand to a stage whereby you would want to actually test it, whereby it has enough functionality, right, to make it marketable?
Honestly, I think we needed more data, so I think it would take at least a few more months to be able to get that kind of data that we were looking for, and then just train it on that. In terms of money, I have no idea.
Right.
I'd have to look into that some more, because for us, we were trying to keep it as cheap as possible. I think we managed to make it with only about 500 pounds. But that was as well, of course, like the attachment and then like making sure that it was usable for different people. So it's still wired, but we didn't get to the wireless stage. So that's going to be another part of things as well. So just for any like students and parents that are listening, if you're into robotics, it's a lot you have to like plan out.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about like what kind of sensors do I need to use? You're planning out what do I want this robot to be able to do? So it's things like that. So that's what I'm running through in my head right now.
Sure.
People that are wondering like, how is she thinking about this? It's more like a breaking down the process of what I want it to do, and then what are the sensors and things that I would need? And then, of course, what about the compute power, which is something else that I didn't get taught until I was already trying it. So that's another thing.
Well, and then the last question about that, because I know it's not our intended focus, right? It's how do you then activate the hand? How is it powered?
Ours was just battery powered. So we had, I think, just some 9-volt batteries, like the little rectangle ones.
Yes.
You just plug those in, and that's it for ours.
And so the idea would be that if I needed to get, I got the hand, that you would somehow have the power pack in my arm.
We'd have a charger for you. So like you have your USB-C charger to charge things now. We would probably have one of those into the arm as well.
And somehow have the battery component inside the actual arm.
Yes.
Wow, okay. So that was that, and then that was the master's piece, or?
Yeah, that was the master's. Sorry, that was the undergraduate piece.
Right, and the master's was what?
That was when I went into artificial intelligence and machine learning, because again, chasing that robotics dream, and I had another mentor who said that I could probably do the robotics in my spare time, which is true. And that's what I ended up doing a lot as well. So I went into machine learning and AI and that was when that took me to Dubai. So my mom actually found that university because we were looking for something that was going to be a bit different than where I was at the moment. So, London, very cold, very gray.
Yes.
So we're like, let's go somewhere else. And she found Dubai, and that's where it really took us, which ended up being really high tech as well. Like, as you know, Dubai went from like sand to skyscrapers in 30 years. So they're really advanced when it comes to like engineering, and they're also starting to implement robots and AI. So that was like really cool when I got there, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much tech, and I was like a kid in a candy store.
Okay, yeah, good,
trying to figure
good.
out what was going on over there.
And as a side part, a quick piece of that is talk to us briefly about living in Dubai. How was it living in Dubai, generally speaking, culturally, as a female, all this kind of things?
So for me, I was there as a female, but also, black female who's also Christian. So, when I first went, I was a little bit nervous, of course, because it was my first time experiencing the Middle East.
Right.
So for me, I was a little bit nervous. But then when I got there, it was completely different than what I had seen like online and in videos. It was very forward as well. And then also, one thing that I really love to tell people is that they have automated trains, so it's driverless trains, and they just go back and forth on the track. But then the other cool thing is that they also have a carriage that's specifically for women, so you feel very safe in Dubai. So in London, I feel like I was always looking over my shoulder. I couldn't leave my computer at the library. I had to make sure I pack everything up just to like go anywhere else. But in Dubai, I found myself like leaving my laptop just in a cafe, and I would go to the bathroom and come back, it's still there, because it's just so safe. Because mainly it's because like they have like a crazy amount of fines if you do anything terrible. So a lot of people are like, it's kind of like a shared mindset of Dubai is very safe, and it really was. So it was safe to be a woman. Like I could go out late at night and nobody would bother you, because like it's a very safe city. And I hadn't expected that when I went there, but it was really safe and also very caring. The people are very friendly. In London, I have a funny story. I was on the train because I just got back from Bermuda, so I was like, hi, good morning to everyone on the train, and they were like,
what's wrong with you? Yeah, gotcha.
But if I say that in Dubai, I didn't do it to the whole train because it's London, but going into a store, you're like, hi, good morning, and they're like, oh, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. You're like, oh yeah, hi, how's it going? So it's very friendly there, and the people are super nice, and it was very calm. So I was really enjoying it there. Like life there was really nice. Always sunny, so never had to wear a jacket. It was good. So the summer is really hot. So if you go in the summer, I would completely avoid it. Maybe go in October, because anything else you'll be burnt to a crisp.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the schooling stuff, and you've obviously given us a lot of information in terms of your expertise, your information, and what we could look forward to, not look forward to as parents, and the rest of it. So now, more recently, which I'm sure your mother wants us to talk about, is your company. But what gave impetus for it to be in Dubai versus Bermuda, and what's your next steps?
To be honest, I was already in Dubai when it started, and then also there's a different mindset in Dubai than there is here in Bermuda, because as I said, when I first started, it was mainly because I wanted to build robots, and I've been waiting for so long for people to give me permission to build robots, because I always thought like, that same mindset of, oh, I'll get hired in a company and then, we'll have our project and we'll all work on that. But there was never a time where I got to do like a robotics internship or anything. It was always just me doing it on the side. So I was like, okay, why am I waiting for someone to let me build robots when I can just do that? And that's what I did. So it took about maybe 2 weeks to meet the right person, and that they gave me access to the 3D printers at my university. And then within a week, I built my robot. And I took it with me to this conference in Dubai called Dritex, and then also another one called Expand North Star. And people were just really amazed. They were like, what is that? How do I get one? Are you selling it? Like, can we invest? And I was like, oh, this could be like, a little company going on here. And that's how I started Tombola Research. It really just went from me wanting to have that, curiosity and love for robotics, and then taking it with me, and other people saw it and they loved it as well.
You don't take an actual robot?
Yes. An actual robot.
Okay, so two things I'm going to ask. One is, what's the name Tombola mean? What is that? How's that come about?
A tombolo is basically like a small island that's attached to the main one. So all the projects I do, I try to tie it back to Bermuda, because I have that love for Bermuda. Okay. So I think of myself as a tombolo that connects back to Bermuda and loves to do research. So that's why it's Tombola Research.
No, brilliant. I mean, it's always as they say, there's so much power in a name, right? And in that context, like obviously, absolutely brilliant. So what robot did you actually build? What did it do?
So I can't actually tell you, because we're in stealth mode. Basically, we're keeping everything very quiet.
Hold on. But you said you took the robot with you.
I did. So the people that saw it, and everybody else will just have to wait until it launches again.
Oh, good gracious! So okay, that's different. So I guess I'm at loss of words to do. So what can you tell us about it? What can you tell us about the process of it? So Tombola Research is now up and running, right? It's based in Dubai, have an extension in Bermuda. It builds or provides research or what have you. Yeah. It built its first robot, but can't talk about it.
No, I can't.
So how do people find, what do you want them to do? How would they invest, or how would they know about it, or what? How does it work?
Okay, so basically what we did with the first one is that people in Dubai, and you asked why would I pick Dubai over Bermuda to start a company? it's because of their mindset is so different. Like, when I went to Dubai and I showed off my robot, it was immediately, how do I get it? Where are you selling it? Can I invest? And then, when I bring that same energy back home, I've noticed that it's like, well, you're so young. Like aren't you going to get a job? Or it's like that same, like that immediate of like restriction almost.
Yes.
And this is what I talked about at my speech as well, which is that there's this kind of mindset of Bermuda doesn't need that. And, if you're doing anything outside of the status quo, I want to say, then you don't get as much encouragement as you would in other countries, which is what I received in Dubai. So that's why I started there. Because it was like, people were so encouraging right away, and they weren't like, oh, you're so young, or I've never, like what degree do you have, or how long have you been doing this for? It was like, okay, your thing works, I want it. So
that's interesting. That's very interesting, by the way, and we can keep it constructive in terms of, so your first ideas and development thoughts and whatever the case may be, they were actually, quote unquote, birthed in Bermuda, and then there was not the acceptance that you needed, or that you expected, and therefore Dubai, or how did that work?
Other way around, more just that I had seen that kind of mindset in Bermuda growing up. So I'll tell you the story that I told on Friday, which was that I wanted to be a geneticist, and I went to a scholarship interview with one of the prestigious families here in Bermuda. And I told them, I was like, I want to be a geneticist. And that was after my genetic study. So, it's the first one on the island, 400 participants. And, I presented it to international scientists so well, in fact, that, University of Oxford wanted me to come and study there. And it was the blueprint for other studies like it on the island. So when I went to the scholarship interview, I told them that. And I told them I want to be a geneticist. And they were immediately like, Bermuda doesn't need that. Just like dismissed immediately. Like, we don't need that. And then 2 years later, we have COVID. And, it's looking around like, where are the people with that and have that genetics understanding? It was only Dr. Krika Weldon. So we had to bring her back. And that was the first time, that we had somebody in that space. And then, of course, like, Bermuda had to change entirely because, our small businesses didn't have access to online shopping. So, the pandemic really closed everything off. So nobody had access to, like, people in person. So the businesses that didn't already have e-commerce and, like, online shopping really suffered because, like, it took them the whole 2 years to be able to get online shopping. And then, the one tech company that did get it, they also got it 2 years later. Sargasso is a great example because they had their app beforehand and it wasn't doing very well. And then COVID hit and suddenly, business explodes because they're the only ones that can do deliveries. So it's interesting how, we're very reactive in Bermuda, I would say, to these kind of events. So that's what I think of COVID as. It's like, it was a crisis moment that Bermuda really wasn't prepared for because of that kind of mindset that we have of, okay, this is the status quo. If you're outside of that, then, it's not really necessary until, oh no, it is necessary, and people are trying to scramble to get it together. It's like that was my experience with genetics research. So when I had those dreams of robotics, I really, to be honest, couldn't see it here yet because there wasn't anybody that was doing it. And then also that encouragement that I had like sought when I was younger just wasn't there. So I was like, if I'm in Dubai and people are like, they're into it and they want to see it, then I'm going to start it there because, they already are giving me that encouragement that I didn't really see when I was back home.
And, and I'll say this.
Not right away. Like, I just really want to clarify. My family was very supportive, but just like in general, I didn't really see that kind of technology love and support that I saw when I was outside of Bermuda.
No, and obviously to the listening audience, that's a very powerful statement. And in terms of, because in Bermuda, we certainly we say that we want to encourage young people to do different things, right? And obviously your experience is not the same as everybody. Yeah. However, it is your experience, right? And as you explained, I think it was quite brilliant in terms of, for you, in that whole entrepreneurial space or just being new and innovative, the overall environment was not there for you. Yeah. And you explained very clearly that one of the things was because you had already gone through and done the initial study. Had the study itself, or at least the method of the study was proven, and yet when you went to present to a scholarship committee or obviously a wealthy family, they were not even open to the exercise. Yeah. And again, that speaks volumes. And so I guess what is a potentially unfair question, but I'll ask anyway, is, so what has been your reception from the government or the broader community? Because, okay, fine, that was a scholarship committee, a wealthy family, they could do what they want to do. What's been the more broader receptivity to what you're doing for government and the broader business community?
So this isn't to criticize the government or anyone
No, it's not. It's
but,
fine. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But so far when I've come back home, I have my own company now. And one of the things I've heard so far is, okay, so like I'll tell them about my company and then immediately, so when are you getting a job? It's like that entrepreneurial kind of like mindset is not necessarily always there when I speak to some people here. It's like immediately like, when are you going to get a job? And I'm like, I have a company, so it's a different kind of mindset, really. So for me, I'm like excited that I get to kind of be that person that I didn't see. So like, lucky for me, I have my mentor, which is Dr. Weldon, and then also my mom is very entrepreneurial. My grandfather was very entrepreneurial. So I have them as great examples. But not every young person that dreams big in Bermuda has that kind of example. So I'm really hoping that with Tombolo, we can be that example for them to like show them that there is a different mindset on the island. It's just like we gotta band together a little bit more. So like I said, like a lot of the young people have this mindset, but then again, they don't get encouraged as much as I would like them to. I haven't really seen it as much as I would love to.
Sure.
There's this idea that you need to have a proven track record in terms of your age or the different things that you've done, and you need to have a super long time that you have to wait before you're able to really like bring yourself forward and do that experience.
Yes.
Which is why we have this kind of brain drain here in Bermuda, I think, of with the students that are really quite talented don't always necessarily have a place to use those talents in Bermuda if it's not in the the specific fields that we have here, because there's not a lot of different experiences for them.
So this now gives you, that comment gives you a chance to shine. So let's talk about Tombolo with its secret robot that no one knows. You can't talk about it, but how would you anticipate progressing Tombolo? Well, first of all, are you back in Bermuda like for a time, or are you going back temporarily? What's your thing?
We're here for a while,
okay,
at least. So the way that I want us to progress forward is, as you know, I'm doing these courses, and I just think that awareness is so important because, like I said, the students that might be interested in these things may not have seen it before, and even just the general population hasn't necessarily seen the kind of technology that maybe like myself and other Bermudians that have been abroad have seen. So that's why it's so important that you have this kind of awareness and this desire to give back to the community in terms of education, which is what we want to be able to do here at Tombolo. So at Tombolo Research, we really stand as a resource, as an educational platform, and also just as I like to think of it almost like a lighthouse, really, to kind of like be that that kind of like way to give that awareness back to the Bermudian community. Because, like I said, this technology for AI at least is here, and it's not necessarily here in Bermuda. That I've seen at least in the same way that I have seen it when I'm abroad. So that's what I want Tombolo to be able to do. So yes, the robot is in stealth mode, which is like a very common term in places like Silicon Valley. It's like the startup in stealth mode because they're not telling you what's coming, like what it does until it launches, and that's how we're going to go forward with our robot. But on the other side of things, for the AI and the education, I still would like to be that, like the person that's able to bring that awareness to people because it's so important.
And so, I guess. But I'll just ask the question. You can decide whether it's appropriate to answer or not. So how would you expect, or how would you encourage persons to invest in Tombolo or in the robot without them knowing about it? How does that work?
I would say to email me. My email is info@tomboloresearch.bm. Sorry. info@tomboloresearch.ai. Tombolo is TOMBOLO. So if you are interested, then feel free to send me an email. But, we can discuss it further.
Okay, gotcha. So you have to ask what you're suggesting, I guess, or what I'm asking you is that a private inquiry will be accepted. It's not like you can not tell anybody about it. No. It's not a general conversation. Okay, fine. Because otherwise, I'm thinking from my financial background, it's going to be, hey, how can you expect me to invest without knowing what the product is? But just saying, no, that's not it. It's not going to be like an over-air conversation.
It's
going to be thing. Okay, gotcha. And then you have to sign an NDA and that kind of, I assume. Okay, gotcha. So to the listening audience, again, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday evening for a wonderful, wonderful show with Ms. Cameron Young, who's talking about AI and robotics and giving us, at least me, information that I was not aware of. And I'll check the questions in a minute that's coming in. Persons can certainly feel free to call in on 297-1027 to ask any questions directly. Somebody else called earlier, like I said, to show off in terms of this Spanish, which is fine. But certainly, persons can now start to call in because I'm sure you have lots of questions, as I have. And one big thing I want to say to the parents out there is to encourage your young person's curiosity. I know that we all learn differently. And in this case, I keep saying Ms. Cameron, but I want to say Ms. Young. Ms. Cameron, because it's a young person. In terms of, from a young person, it's her her grandfather, her mother to some degree, but also really bringing to him these insects, I want to call them, and your mother encouraging you to, really asking you, I guess, how to take care of them, which cause you to do research, which then build up your strength around research, and away you go. Okay, so you referenced a couple times in terms of the speech you gave on Friday. So talk a little bit about that, and I'll ask you some questions about that also, really, because I'm interested now in terms of what you said, and how we're going to really explore and capitalize on AI in Bermuda going forward.
Really quickly, just a quick correction.
Sure.
Was that my mom was a very huge part. So I want to say that she was a very big part of me, going to this curiosity, and then also being able to go outside of the island. She's really been my rock in terms of everything. Doing my research, being able to get off the island, and also be able to do the study that I'm interested in. So she's been a huge pillar for me. So for the parents that are listening, it's important that you really support your child and as much as you can. And that's what I learned and I got from my mom. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Obviously, to this always gets you. Obviously, I know you're being careful and all that kind of stuff, right? But I've said this. Okay, on a personal level, of course, I have 2 children, right, and they're less than 25.
Right.
So they're young in my perspective, and certainly, it is really for the parents and for the students to understand that each person is unique. And we need to be very, very strong and almost guided in how we try to encourage persons, right? I know in your case, your mother has definitely pushed and done all kinds of things to ensure that you're able to, number one, explore and have the financial resource you need to get to where you've gotten thus far, and to obviously push for more to come. And with that too, without overemphasizing this, I want to say that for parents, and it's not just words, it's the truth, is that sometimes our circumstances don't allow us to easily achieve things, but we have to, in my words, dig deep and realize that you have to do different things, break through barriers, because that's what it is. And as long as you're able to allow that desire to stay, keep the fire burning, as it were, then you will make some progress. And so, notwithstanding your personal circumstances, there are things you have to do sometimes. I know another friend of mine, he was going to go to school and he had no money, and he actually asked persons in the neighborhood to help him, and he was able to get to university, and now he is a successful person. So yes, to your mother, certainly want to give her commendations, and to all parents really out there, whatever your circumstances are, to know that you can do more. So having said all that, Friday, what did you talk about on Friday?
Oh yes, so the talk was entitled Bermuda's Lack of AI Infrastructure and How That's Left Us in 2022. So we were discussing that topic. It was really an informative session. It wasn't meant to be a criticism of anyone or any government entity. It was really just to raise awareness around AI, and also to kind of hear from the audience a bit as well, to see what people were thinking about AI and where their head was at with it. And that was really just kind of the goal of it overall.
And so tell me what you're talking about, because I want to know. You talked just now earlier in terms of you were discouraged from the scholarship application time, and now the mindset in Dubai was very different, very much more open, I guess, more entrepreneurial focused, but you're not finding that here. And so you can talk some more about what you see or don't see from an EI infrastructure point of view in Bermuda. And then what I want to ask really is, what is your plan, almost your economic plan, while you're here? Because obviously you have not launched the robot yet. And so what's the plan? Except I know you're doing the courses. So let's talk some more about that. You can feel free now to advertise yourself.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
In that sense.
So basically what we were chatting about was looking at where Bermuda is at in terms of how we're innovating. So we were looking at just a very high level overview, was that we were looking at where is Bermuda in terms of AI right now. So we talked a little bit about things like the AI policy and how it's more focused on AI usage versus creation. We looked at...
and we say we, who's we?
Myself and the attendees. That was
sure.
That was the we. So and I really wanted to be an open discussion. So I didn't talk I talked for about half of the session. Then I wanted to get questions back from the audience as well. So it was really just a good chat. And then what else did we discuss? We were looking at.
So it's important you said already in terms of there's the policy speaks more to usage versus creation, which it goes back to your whole idea, your comment earlier in terms of we are not entrepreneurial minded, because the creator is going to be the entrepreneur.
So yes, I didn't mean to say it as though Bermuda isn't entrepreneurial focused. I just mean it as though, for myself as a young person, I wasn't always encouraged to do so, and I still kind of get that same.
No, don't. You don't have to apologize. That was my words, right?
No,
in terms of. Even generally speaking now, a lot of times the focus is get a job as opposed to start a business. And so be an employee rather than employer. So that is true.
That is true.
For many persons, right? And you're right in terms of, from my own perspective would be that if you do want to be an entrepreneur, there are many barriers in place. There are lots of hurdles that you have to go over. And so, I don't want you to apologize for my comment in that regard, but go ahead.
So that's just what I've been noticing. So we were discussing how, I talked about that story. I went through my own journey a little bit more the same way that we did at the beginning, going from my grandfather encouraging me to then, the genetic study, doing Cameron's lab, being invited back by my university to do different talks for them. So I was able to I did 3 of their AI breakthrough workshops where I had 2 professors, and I was basically just hosting them and guiding them through questions and trying to get them to break it down.
Okay.
So I did that for AI in ethics, robotics, and also in healthcare. And that was my university, which is Queen Mary University of London. They also invited me back just about, I think, last summer, maybe earlier in the fall, where I was speaking to their second-year medical students and also about AI and how they can use it in their different clinics and also as students. And then, of course, it went to the ethical perspective, because for me, the ethics, like privacy and security of AI is so important. And that was a big focus of our talk on Friday as well. So looking at AI and how we have to keep it very private and secure. So that was another big thing that we discussed. And then, of course, we mentioned Tombolo and what we're working on and what we're building here a little bit more. So I won't go too much into that because I'm saving that for the people that, were attending. But it was more looking at where's Bermuda in terms of AI, where are we in terms of our innovation, and then also looking at where's Tombolo in terms of trying to help with that a bit more. So how do we want Bermuda to move forward? Because I can't say something like we lack this and then not provide where I think we should be. So in my opinion, I think that Bermuda is in an awareness phase in terms of AI, when really we should be starting to at least go into the adoption or even a little bit into the creation phase as well. So that's what we discussed in terms of the overall at the talk, and I thought that it was a great conversation, and it showed me that honestly, some of the questions highlighted what I was saying a bit more in terms of Bermuda being in the awareness phase, because some people were still what is ChatGPT, or what are your favorite tools? And it was very much, a lot of people were asking me things that I would consider to be in the awareness phase. So people trying to learn more, which I think is great, because I want people to ask questions and understand it and, get their questions out. And that's what they did at the session, which I thought was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed it.
And so in that context, what are you going to do to raise awareness?
So we have these courses that are coming up.
Speak about them.
So that's the first one. So the courses start this week, now that it's Sunday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So, sorry, they start on Wednesday. Wednesday, April 22nd is my beginner's course. So that one is called AI in Action. And it's really because I had seen other courses and they all were very focused on prompt engineering. And AI is so much more than that. It's we can break it down into different workflows. We're looking at AI agents, and I'm throwing out a lot of terms, so of course I'll explain them later. But, I wanted people to be able to understand, what is AI? How can I use it to amplify myself? How can I use it in my personal life? And then also, how can I use it in my job? So what are the tools that they can expect their job to bring them that are AI focused? So some of you listening may have heard on your job about Microsoft Copilot, for example. That's a big thing that people are starting to bring in, but not everybody understands what it is or how it works. So we're going to talk about that as well, how to build your own AI workflows and agents. So this is what the beginner's course is about. So it's how do I go from what is AI to, okay, I'm now building my own products and workflows. And we do that over 4 weeks. It's 3 hours each week, so it's from 6 to 9 p.m. But it's an intensive course. Because it's not just myself that's teaching it.
Oh, wow.
Tombolo Research is an international team. So we have people in Dubai, I have people in London. I also have a PhD candidate that's working at the University of Cambridge right now. She's going to be a guest lecturer at the at the courses as well. So we're all under 27. We have a real breadth and depth of knowledge that we're going to be sharing at these courses. So it won't just be me that's teaching, it'll be my whole team.
Okay.
So people from Dubai, London, and then of course one person from the University of Cambridge is coming to speak as well.
And those persons, I'm assuming, but again, I should not assume, they'll be via online.
They'll be online.
Yeah.
So but that's the great thing about being in this digital world, is that I've met so many different people that are around, because one thing I didn't get to tell you about was during my time in my undergraduate, being kind of, I like to say, chasing innovation. I went to a variety of different conferences in London. I was in Cannes and Paris in France, and then I went to Munich in Germany, Zurich in Switzerland, and then of course when I got to the UAE, I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, just chasing where this innovation was going. So I met a lot of different people. So that's the kind of depth and breadth that I bring to the team, and also that my team has, because I've met these people at these conferences or at university, and then I'm able to bring them onto my team, and we all share our knowledge into this course, and then also into the workflows, into Tombolo in general. So we all work together to build the different products and then serve our customers and things like that. So it's a young team, but we are very experienced and we all have a lot of knowledge because everyone on the team at least has their masters. So, myself and one other team member both did artificial intelligence and machine learning for our masters. We have another person that studied advanced robotics. And then, of course, the PhD candidate who's currently studying natural language processing. So remember, I talked about LLMs earlier. That's what she's studying. So she's looking at different languages and how you can bring AI into that and preserve different cultures. It's just really fascinating, the kind of things that my team is working on. I'm so proud of them. And I get to bring all of that knowledge to you in the courses. So that's what you get to experience by coming to a Tombolo research course.
Well, and obviously, not obviously, but I'm aware of the courses, but I was not aware of the depth and breadth of what you're bringing it, as opposed to, and obviously not just you, it's a world course, basically, effectively. And so, obviously, it's the first time you're doing it, right? And so I assume, or not assume, I should ask the question. So what's the plan going forward in terms of, will you repeat the course, or will you make them more available online, or what's the thought about once you get beyond the first two courses?
So in terms of those courses, because they're all been written by me, and also some of my other team members as well.
I mean, in terms of there's a full course curriculum, all that kind of thing.
Full course curriculum. We give you homework. We also give you worksheets to do in the class as well. So it's like you're getting tools, but you're also getting I have a whole curriculum ready for you.
Well,
we'll be going through different modules as well. So you'll get to see the curriculum when you come on the day. I'll let you know what your homework is every week. So by joining us, you get also 16 professional development hours because it's 3 hours during the day, but then I also expect you to do at least an hour of homework, and then I need you to show me what you learned. So we're going to be talking about that every week, presenting to each other, keep each other accountable. And then also for the course, where I want to go next with them is to continue them, because I think it's just so important that people can continue to have that awareness and also have that group where we can work together. And I think that the courses are going to be a great example of that. And then also on top of that, as a digital team, we also have digital certificates available. So if you see on your LinkedIn profile now, you can have add certificate. So once you finish the course, you can add your Tombolo research certificate to your LinkedIn profile. So if you're joining and people ask you do you have this AI experience? You'll be like, I have my Tombolo research certificate on my LinkedIn profile.
And as an aside, from a professional point of view, right? What has to happen for this to qualify, quote unquote, as among professional development hours?
I think it's we had to go through the BEC, so you had to ask them to make the course for you that way.
So you as Tombolo went to BEC locally?
Yes, so we're going to them locally.
To
the BEC, the Bermuda Education Council.
Right.
Yeah.
In order for them to validate what you're doing as being
professional development hour worthy. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm just trying to check the rest of these questions that are coming through now in terms of one of which was that whole professionalism that you've gone through in terms of you have a full curriculum, and even with that would be, how did you develop that in terms of how do you know what goes into a professional curriculum, because that's another skill set, by the way, for a course such as this to allow it to qualify, especially for the Bermuda Employers Council, to say yes.
Sorry, education. So we're going to them next to get it fully certified. But really, it's just my own experience. So I have my bachelor's, I have my master's, and then also having traveled to these different conferences, I've seen other courses, and I've been listening to people from all different walks of life in terms of AI and technology. So different people are founders, they're CEOs, they're academic professors, people in the space that have showed me what is important to be doing in AI, and then also my own research, seeing other researchers, and really just staying on top of this kind of thing. So I'm bringing you my whole experience, really. From, as I mentioned, I've been to conferences all over Europe and also in the Middle East, and I'm bringing all of that knowledge with me into this course. So it's looking at the real world applications of AI, because like I said, Bermuda doesn't have necessarily that full awareness of what it's like out there for AI. Because if you go out there and you talk about AI, the kind of questions I get are completely different than the ones that I get back home. People are asking here, they'll be like, what's an agent? Which I think is great, because I really want people to understand it. But out there, they'll be like, okay, I have this agentic workflow and I want to be able to do blah, 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 blah. And they'll be like, okay. So, it's a different kind of mindset that they have out there than we have here. And I really want to foster that, which is why I'm hosting these courses, because I want us to foster our mindset towards how can AI really work for me. And I think that that's going to be a completely different change for people as well, in terms of perspective.
Okay. What I want to do also, because I did check some things and I want to ask about is, and you've mentioned a few times now, in terms you have a desire to become a surgeon, but I know you've done some work in terms of the local healthcare, and you spoke about just now also in terms of the, you called it keeping it private and confidential, I think it was. For AI. So how does that tie into Bermuda's local healthcare system?
Sure. Well, right now what we have, I think in Bermuda is PIPA, so it's like keeping our information private. So that's something that I've been doing more research into and making sure that the things that I have on my website and also for the course itself are PIPA, protect, like trying to make sure that PIPA, I guess, what would be the word, like regulate, like make sure that it's linked to that. So in terms of the healthcare, I think that AI could be a real asset to Bermuda. And what we're trying to do at Tombolo is really kind of develop products that can be helpful towards that. So when we have clients that come to us, like we'll be able to show them the different things that we've already worked on and the things that we can do for them as well. So if you are in the healthcare space and you're looking for to be able to bring in some AI automations or to be able to use AI, just let us know. So again, info@tomboloresearch.ai, and we'll be able to assist you with that.
And so as a business person, right, how would they know what to ask for if they don't know?
And that's a great question. So that's why we're trying to do more awareness. So it's what I think would be more useful for them is to think, what do you want? Like you don't have to think about what can AI do. Think about what do you as a business want to be able to achieve. So like what are your goals? What are some things that you find to be repetitive and things that you want to try to maybe you don't want to have to do that anymore. That's likely something an AI might be able to help you with. So what I try to get people to do is to think about, what do you find yourself doing often that maybe an AI can help you with, or what's something that you like have as a goal in your business that you want to be able to achieve. Bring it to us and we can tell you is that feasible or not, and that's what we do in terms of our consulting.
And so now let's say speak to me as a potential client. So I want you to come by and review my business. I happen to be in whatever the healthcare field is or any other field for that matter. How does it actually work? Is it like you just charge a fee, or how does it work? And I'm interested now in terms of you, the young person, got a new business opportunity. So how does the general public interact with you from a business perspective?
Right. So we do charge for proposals because.
And don't say it with an apology, by the way.
No, I didn't. I was just like,
it's came because that's yes, of course you do.
Yeah, we charge for proposals because it is our IP every time. So every time we're customizing a system towards you as a person, like if you come to me as an individual that wants help with AI, or maybe you're a business, so it's different. But we charge for proposals because it is our IP. So that's one thing that we do first, and it's an audit as well. So we're looking at like what does your business currently have. And then also, how can we plug into that? So that's one thing that we do. And then also we offer training as well. So we help you in terms of like educating your staff. And I think that's a big thing here in Bermuda as well, because like not a lot of people have knowledge about AI. And there's also a fear around AI, not just in Bermuda,
it's the fear
but
of the unknown.
globally.
Yes.
So that's something that we also are, like that's something that we work on and we help you with, because we understand that there's this fear around it. And we try to help you to manage that amongst your team, and then also give tools to be able to assist them with that. So that's something that we look towards. So it's like, what do you want to be able to do with AI? And then also, if your team is looking towards implementing it, but you're not too sure that they're ready, then maybe they need to have a training session with us first.
Okay. And around this, the question in terms of people not understanding, right? And obviously be careful, not careful, that's the word. Respond any way you choose. But the Premier has recently talked about Bermuda doing different things to raise awareness or whatever, and he talked about a chat box really for, I think, a pension application, which I was a bit surprised about, to be honest. What types of things do you think, generally speaking, that the government can do? Like, how governments operate is Bermuda. So what would you say are typical applications, if you will, of AI in any government that we don't have, that you see us being able to do, or, what would you even recommend if you could?
Honestly, I'm probably just not going to answer that one because it would be a consulting fee for me. So again,
good gracious, Lord have mercy. Your mother taught you well. That's crazy. Maybe just as an example, not like just an example, I guess. I don't know. Or what would be something typical? I want people.
I think in general, it's more like a repetitive thing. So anything that's a bit repetitive or that you see is something that could be automated, that's likely something an AI can help you with. Or if you have a lot of data that you want to be able to have an AI sort for you, or you want, people to be able to interact with, then an AI might come in handy for that. So that's my general answer. But if you want it more specific, you have our email. come to our website, tomboloresearch.ai.
Okay, so in terms of let me try this again, would be that you would have a potential AI solution for anything that's being done on a regular basis. And so I'm thinking of a medical practice now. A couple of things happen. It's going to be patients coming in all the time. You got to enter them in, your name, whatever the case may be. There's going to be some examination done. There's going to be claims sent across to insurance companies coming back. and let's just say those things. So are you suggesting that there's an AI solution, even, for example, for an AI solution for financial transactions?
Yes.
Yeah. Because then again, I'm going to ask a more broad question, and I'm not trying to get you to give an answer per se, but I want the general public to understand how this might work. What came to mind just now is, let's say there are lots of debt collection out there. Would you suggest there's an AI solution around that? Because it is repetitive in terms of you have to collect the information that Anthony owes X amount of money, court dates, and those type of things.
So in that case, I must admit that I'm more of a fan of things like human in the loop. So if you haven't heard that term yet, it basically just means that the AI isn't fully autonomous. It's asking a person for their feedback before it makes decisions. So for example, you don't want, the system to be like, Anthony hasn't paid his debt back in like 2 days. Let's get him. And they send out the full squad team, because that's like, the AI is like, oh, well, we need to go for the max of things to be able to get to this person. So it doesn't necessarily, you don't want it to be able to do certain things like that completely alone. I think that there are some limitations that it should have. And that's where we come in to be able to really educate you around that. And then show you like, what do we think is, it's our suggestion, of course, this is what we think probably wouldn't be a good idea to use AI for, and this is what we think it would be great for. And then, of course, there's the things like PIPA. So, being able to understand where people's personal data is and then keep that safe, very safe. Because that's a huge thing for us, is keeping the data secure. Because, these systems are unpredictable. We're still learning about them. And that's why I think we're probably one of the more cautious, I guess, of the companies. So we're making sure that your data is safe and secure, and that the people using our systems understand what data it has access to, and also what data it needs access to as well.
And so there's two different questions. One would be, so what is the expertise, I guess, around data security? Because that's a whole different skill set, I would imagine.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that kind of thing really comes with the experience. And it is something that we got to talk about in my own master's degree, was looking at data security. So understanding what data counts as personal data, and then also how do we secure that. But that's something that we still look into quite regularly at Tombola Research. So looking at how do we keep the data secure, and that, like you said, is a whole another field as well.
Yeah, got you. And then in the Bermudian context would be a matter of, you said human in the loop, in terms of there being human input.
Yes.
Rather than it being completely automated. And so going back to my example in terms of the debt collection, would it be one thought might be that they might say, okay, Anthony owes money, that's a report done, but a human interaction comes in to say, well, send him a notice or not? Is that what you mean in terms of there always
that could be an example of it. So getting the AI to check with you first before it makes that final action is where the human in the loop really comes from.
And what makes you sensitive to the human in the loop as opposed to just let it go? Set the rules, 30 days, whatever, and let it go, and not have any sense of compassion.
Well, for us, it's situational, because I think that some things let it go. Not everything needs to have a human in the loop, but there are definitely some more sensitive situations, and I think that as a company, we're very aware of that. So we try to get a real full context of what the situation is before we say that should be autonomous or that should be human in the loop. So it's looking at the context of it as a whole before we're 100%, just throw an AI on that. So it's really giving it a full deep dive before we're able to decide what's human in the loop and what's not.
Gotcha. Okay. And before I go further to other question here is, so Cameron is now finished her. Have you finished your formal education, or are you still going to go back?
I'll go back for my medical degree, but for now I'm finished with the master's and the undergrad.
Okay. And so is it fair to ask? So let's assume that for the next year, you're here to develop to Tombola, not just in Bermuda, but on a worldwide basis. You are the CEO. You're the person in charge of it.
Yes, founder and CEO.
Right.
I can't say where I'll be for the year, but
no, I mean that. But I mean in terms of development. So, as you said already, the fact that it's internet based, you'd have to be in Bermuda anywhere you want in the world. Do it.
It's true. Yeah. So I'll be here working on Tombola Research for at least the foreseeable future.
Okay. And then, so without the detail, right? Because I'm now financial. Sorry.
Yeah.
From a financial point of view, it's I don't want to know about the actual robot itself, right? But what level of financing are you looking to get? Because I think that's something that the general public would need to understand in terms of, is you looking for 50,000, 100,000, $1 million? What would you say is the ballpark number you're looking for? Because there may be people listening in the audience, right, that can come forward and say, yeah. within reason?
To be honest, I'd rather not give a ballpark figure on the air. Again, I would rather that you email me. So if you are an investor, then send me an email. It would be info@tomboloresearch.ai, and then we can discuss it a little bit more.
This is amazing. So everything is a secret nowadays. Okay. So you're not gonna tell me what the robot is. You're not gonna give me a ballpark in terms of the amount of money you're looking to raise. Is there? And the way to contact you is via email. So there's no.
We have a phone, sorry, but most people just prefer to email.
Right.
But our number is 519-5756.
Okay. So, Brother Glenn, I think if you're not listening now, you will listen to this. I'm trying to have our guest give a financial context to this whole AI thing, and as you know, I'm having quite a bit of difficulty, quite a lot of interference, just trying not to give me any information. But anyway, let's go for it. What is the number again?
519-5756.
575756. And the email address?
Is info@tombolo, so TOMBOLO, research.ai.
Okay, research.ai. Okay. So I guess people have to be really determined to get information about the robotics and the rest of it. Okay, that's good. And I will commend you also, because even though I don't think it can actually work, a lot of people believe that their dream cannot be shared because others will take that dream and activate it. But again, based upon the nature of what you're doing, that's not even going to be practical, to be honest. So let's go a little bit more general as we wind down now, and that is that you've done lots of work, by the way, that's in the public arena, and some of it has been been described rather as being practical, inclusive, ethical, and locally relevant. And with that, you talked about it a little bit a minute ago, but let's talk some more about the idea of what is it with ethics and AI? What's the relevance? What's the aspect? How is it going to work?
So I think we touched briefly on why it's so important, like one of the aspects of why it's so important earlier when we talked about being involved in the data set, because I mentioned AI is completely data-based. So, if you're not in the data and it's never seen it before, it has no way of really knowing how to interact with it or how to deal with it. So I actually have a great example of this, which is Dr. Joy Buolamwini. She was a PhD researcher at MIT, and she was focused on facial recognition at the time while she was in the MIT Media Lab. So,
okay.
Yeah, you've probably seen that.
No, but go ahead.
She's a dark-skinned woman who's African, and she was doing facial recognition, and when she was trying to test the model on herself, it just didn't recognize her as a person. It's like usually, you bring in she brought in a light-skinned or a white person onto that thing, and it would recognize him immediately. So then she realized that if she put on this full-face white mask, it would recognize her face as a person. And that was when she realized that because the data set had never seen someone of a darker skin color, it just didn't even recognize her as a person or as a face to recognize. So that's just one example of what happens when people are not involved in the AI or they're not included in these data sets, is that they get left behind, which is a very serious topic, and I think it's something that we need to bring more awareness to. And it's not to raise fear, it's more to raise awareness, and also to kind of motivate people as well to hopefully think, okay, how do I get myself involved in these things and make sure that I'm not left out of that space. And that's something that one of the people that I work with, her whole mission is looking at languages, but not in a way that I guess, interferes with the culture, because, I don't want to force anyone to be a part of a model they don't want to, but it's more if you have that desire to be a part of it, then, you should really, get more educated on it and think where would you want that to happen? So, for example, with our Bermudian culture, we can think of where do we want the AI to be integrated in. I'm not saying that AI has to take over everything.
Yes.
I just think that there are some parts of it that could be really beneficial to us as a people. And it's important for us to have that knowledge and that understanding of AI to be able to create systems or create policies that are beneficial towards us. Because, if we're not the ones that are building these policies, then somebody else will, and they're not going to have our best interests at heart all the time. So I just think that, us being aware, being educated, and being ready to do our own kind of AI adoption is going to be super important, because, the rest of the world is already moving and starting to race with AI, really. Different countries are fighting each other to see, who's going to be first with this whole AI thing. And we haven't really started because we're still in the awareness phase. So it's going to be important for us. I'm not saying we have to get in the race, but at least to, start running a little bit into it. That's what I think.
And with that, question would be, how, which you may have answered, but I want to explain a little more in terms of, so let's say Bermuda is, for argument's sake, 90% not aware, which is a problem. How serious is that if we don't get aware quite quickly and become part of it. Because some people might be thinking, okay, fine, it's nothing to do with me, I don't need to worry about it, whatever. But again, how do you answer that question, I guess? I mean, you're starting, but how do you encourage others? Or will you be the champion?
Well, definitely trying to be like, the person that helps you to get there. But in terms of how serious is that, if I could give an analogy, I would say that, when people were learning how to use calculators, they were like, oh, we don't really need that because, people know how to do math by themselves. But now, a calculator is a huge part of the mathematical curriculum. Or you can think about the internet when it first came out, people probably didn't know what to do with it or what it was going to do, like its full potential. And then now it's an integral part of everyday life. And we're in that same stage of AI. We're basically at the beginning of the internet, where, there's this new technology. Not many people really know what its full potential is or where it could really go. We just know that there are problems it can solve, and people are starting to race towards solving those problems and really like integrating it into their day-to-day. And if we don't have that awareness, if we don't have that experience with it, then, we will be left behind when the rest of the world starts using it. It's like, we'll be almost in a stone age, really, in terms of like, that kind of technology is booming everywhere, and then we don't have it or we have never seen it. How will we have that experience, and how will our students, for example, have that experience when they leave the island? It'll be their first time they see stuff like that, and I don't want that to happen. So I'd rather that they start to experience it and experiment with it here amongst like friendly faces rather than out there for the first time.
Gotcha. And do you have any comment in terms of Bermuda, a small island, right? Do you have any comment in terms of, generally speaking, how other small areas are or are not involved? Like, where are we in terms of our level of involvement or, I guess, awareness of AI compared to other maybe small islands or small areas?
I'm not sure I could give us like a ranking. But I could give a good example. One of the examples that I have is, I believe it's pronounced Anguilla. They realized that their, I guess, like country code is AI. So now when people have a .ai website, they have to pay back a little bit to Anguilla. So they're one of the countries that realized the potential of AI, and they were able to capitalize on it early because they had seen that, AI is becoming such a big thing, and that they had a really cool link to it, and that was a way that they were able to, be able to benefit their country in that way. So not every big company that was like they wanted a .ai, Anguilla now gets a part of that. So it's like looking at that kind of awareness of like realizing that the technology is important and thinking proactively about it is like that's one of my examples for it, is that, looking, and it's not like it didn't benefit. It's not like they integrated it in a harmful way. It's still like, they used a part of their culture to benefit off of AI. And I think that that's something we could definitely do in Bermuda, is look at, how can we benefit from it? And I think that that's where the awareness leads to, is thinking, okay, once we know what it is, now what do we do with this thing? And that's the kind of conversation that Tombola research is trying to spark. Okay, gotcha. And one thing I think now this is a question that you can answer, a financial question, right? And that is, what is the cost of your courses? The cost is $795 for the adult one, and then we have a student one also that's $395. Okay. So I didn't get to talk about the second one. So we have the beginners one, which is called AI in Action, and that one is on Wednesdays. It starts on the 22nd until the, I believe, 14th. Oh, once a week for 4 weeks. Yes, once a week for 4 weeks. It's 3 hours, and that starts on the 22nd of April. That's the adult one. Yes. And then the second adult one for more like techie people like myself that love to code or they want to know the theory behind AI, and it's called the Applied AI Lab, and that's going to be on Thursdays starting on April 23rd. So that one is more for the kind of like techie kind of nerds, like that want to get into AI, but really behind the scenes with it. And the same price? Same price. Yes. Okay. And what's the other one? That's the student one. So that's called the AI Creators Lab Youth Edition. And we talk so much about AI and how it impacts the young people. And so that course is really for students and student entrepreneurs, because I want them to be able to understand what is AI, but also I want them to question it, because that's something that I've noticed that not a lot of students do. They take it at face value. Yep. So the course is to teach them how to question it. So it's only an hour and a half each time, and it's on Saturday mornings from 9:30 to 11. Okay. But the goal is to get them to walk away questioning it, get them to walk away building their own products with it, and then also spreading awareness amongst their peers. Hold on, Cola. And so the adult courses are 800, and the young 795. About 795, 800, and the young person's one is 300. 395. 400. Okay, sorry. So good evening, caller. Welcome to Insight. What's your question or comment?
Yes. Good evening. Mr. Richardson, and to your guests there.
Yes, Ms. Young.
Very, very powerful information hearing from this lady. And looking at something you mentioned earlier, Mr. Richardson, in the sense that how would teachers know if a student hasn't used AI to form whatever they need to bring forward to the classroom as far as their course is concerned? And looking at that, shouldn't we now look at changing the way of a student gathering information? Because, you know, if you're given a course to study and you have to come through to pass a test in order to graduate, and you're using today's technology like AI, how the lady that described it, and you can ask you questions, you can tell you how to do this or do that, the other. And the basic thing is for the student itself, although he may not be able, he didn't get it in the traditional way of studying, but he's got it in the new modern way of studying. And the main thing that the teacher's trying to get him to understand is what they're giving him to study is something for him to learn how to use it in the future of whatever course he has taken. And should we look at things different now in the sense of children learning, you know, instead of calling them cheaters or the cheating or the not going by the traditional way of gathering that information? Because by the looks of it, it doesn't look like you can even really block that out, because if they're giving them something to do and they go to the library or whatever it is, now you have AI where you can sit up in front of the screen and gather the information that you need to understand what you're being taught. And, of course, using it later to create, like this young lady here has created from her own studies and learning. And, of course, you know, she has her own company now, you know. So I just thought I'd ask that question. But another one, in the sense of the subliminal effect in which that we are getting from the gathering of information in the sense of a PlayStation. I mentioned this to you before.
Yes.
You know, where, you know, we as parents has now got to monitor all that. As always, the parents has got to do this and do that. But you give a child a cell phone, an iPhone, it's supposed to run around at 10, 11, 12 years old. They got the latest in the phone and the technology that comes along with it.
Yes.
So they can gather whatever information they want or play whatever games is already being promoted to you, you know, through the commercialization of these games and stuff. But the subliminal effect that is entering the child's mind in years to come. And another thing that needs to be taken in very serious consideration by scientific note, that you are not really able to be able to make the right decision as far as your brain being developed until the age of 25. So, you know, it's a long way to go before you can gather that information and make that full disclosure of what you're about to do, like what was seen going on around here on the island. But when you have games like Grand Theft Auto and the rest of those types of games that is promoting this type of behavior to our children, you know, we as the people and the government needs to take a serious look at even banning these types of destructive games and violence. You know, and if the industry itself can't come up with more educational games to develop the children's mind in a better manner, you know, we don't need that. Or I'll just leave it at that. I can go on forever.
Sure, thank you, Cola.
But very interesting. This lady here, she's a proud comedian.
Yes, sir.
You know, from listening to her experience and traveling and her parents and grandfather and all that. I mean, you know, just a prime example of what could happen. And I do like the point where she mentioned that parents should look at the interests of the child first. And look what she's done with that in our interest. And I'll just listen off there. I really appreciate listening to her. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caller.
Thank you, Caller.
Wow. That was quite asking quite a bit. From that, he didn't quite phrase this way, right? But the question would be, how do we, or what do you recognize, or whatever the word is, talk about the bias in all of it? I know that you mentioned it, that the lady was not able to be recognized because she was black and they had not had data set, right? But what about the bias in algorithms and whatever, even in terms of how you may ask a question it'll give you an answer that actually is inherently biased based upon its data set because it doesn't have. So how do you, what do we do about that? Even when it comes to questions, by the way, it's a bigger issue.
100%. So for that, I think that's where, again, awareness. So understanding that these AI systems seem, especially to young students, they seem like, this all-knowing thing. I ask a question, it gives you an answer every time. But really, like I mentioned before at the beginning, we're talking about LLMs and how they actually work. It's predicting. It's trying to predict the next word based on what you've asked it. And also in relation to the context that it has as well. So these things have, like for example, when ChatGPT first came out, they had access, they trained it on the whole internet. So when I say train, I mean they gave it the data that was on the internet and then allowed it to learn from that. So, but it only had access to the internet up until, a certain year. So if you're, for example, maybe it was, 2022, and you're asking it questions in 2023, it would only understand what's happening in 2022 versus what's now happening then. So that's why now they've tried to open it up more so that it's able to ask. So you can turn on different tools. So for example, web search. So now when you ask it a question, it's supposed to search the web instead of using what it's in its original database to be able to give you an answer. So in that case, it's more like, again, you have to really pay attention to what it's answering you and double check.
So just as an example, by the way, in many instances, if you ask what something happened today, it's not going to have an answer because it can't. It doesn't have access to it.
If you don't have access to the internet or, to real-time data, it may not give you the right answer.
Gotcha.
But it'll certainly try.
Yeah.
And, you have to, there's certain ways that you can tell it to if you don't know, then say that. You can try to tell it that, but then again, it might be like, don't worry, I got you. And then you check it and that's not a correct statement.
Okay.
So there's that. And then I think the gentleman also asked, how do we know if a student is using AI for the assignments?
Yes.
I think it depends. For example, for English, you can tell. If something's written by AI, you can tell because there's certain punctuations that it uses, or it'll start using emojis. And the students, bless their hearts, they don't know that these patterns are there. So they're not necessarily looking out for it. Or some of them are getting pretty good, actually. They can recognize what the pattern is that they constantly see from the AI, and they'll tell it not to do that. So they'll be for example, there used to be a lot of emojis in writing, so that you can tell the AI, okay, don't include emojis, or I noticed that you make this pattern, don't do that. So for me, it's not necessarily figuring out too much when they're using AI. It's getting them to be honest with you about the fact that they're using it, because that's what my university did.
Yeah.
They had a whole policy around if you're using it, say so, because if they catch you, then you get this huge penalty of they're taking off marks.
Right.
So I think we need to change the way that we have the conversation. Instead of stop using it, it should be be honest with me, when are you using it and how? That way you can have a different conversation with the student, and maybe even change the way that you ask assignments, like you said, in-person tests, or changing the way that you ask assignments, because with AI, you can personalize it. So the teacher has this tool too. So you can make questions that are personalized to the student directly, things that the AI probably won't know about them, that you can get them to see.
And that's interesting, like you said, because the AI itself, all these databases, they don't have everything in them.
Right.
And so you can ask a question that's specific to you. It's
to your classroom.
what color clothes does Karen have on? Boom, there's nobody's going to have an answer. And so got you. So that's quite interesting. And then I think there's a lot of questions coming up in terms of the use of it. And what I was going to say, from a teaching point of view, in the past, it was take this test, pass, fail. If you fail it, that's it, whatever. Whereas now there's a greater emphasis, certainly when it comes to professional development, it's more so around you learning the information. And so if I learn it the first time and you take 5 times to learn it, at the end of the day, it's magically the same, because at that point we both know it.
Exactly.
And that's what you just said is interesting in terms of, will there be a different emphasis? You said they did it for you at a university level, right? In terms of not don't use it, but tell me when it's being used, and I can then assess it. That's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly.
It's a whole different mindset.
Yeah, it's different, completely different. So that's why we're trying to bring that kind of thinking here.
Yes, quite interesting. Good evening, caller. Thank you for your patience. What's your question or comment?
Mr. Anthony, just a comment.
Yes, sir.
Is that Miss Young?
Yes, Ms. Young.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. I've just been listening in. I came in, I think, a little bit late.
No worries.
But I hear you talking about AI.
Yes.
As one that has been involved in the area of technology my whole life, this whole AI thing is very interesting.
Yes.
And to me, it's going to be interested in how this is integrated into our life. Because it could go so many different ways. So many ways it could go, in my opinion, great, and so many ways it can go wrong.
Yes.
Right now we are the masters of the AI as far as teaching it and what we want it to do.
Right.
Let me ask you something, Ms. Young. Have you ever heard of a show called Twilight Zone?
I have heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It's just too young. What are you talking about? Just too young.
Huh?
I've
She's
heard
too
of it,
young.
but I haven't seen it.
But no. What I'm saying is that is she'd heard of it. I mean, it can be actually viewed. It can be viewed on TV now.
Yes, of course.
Depending on where you tap into, you know.
Yes.
But that's something that came way up like 1959, somewhere around that time, and at that time it looked at being futuristic. This whole subject you're talking about now was contemplated on that show, and in that show, it was actually figured out by the, I don't want to say robots, maybe androids, because the androids are basically a much higher version of a robot. That the people that were controlling everything were now obsolete. And I could see something like that happening because right now we're using AI, and we're just barely scratching the surface of.
Right.
But what happens when what we've created to help us now feels that it's above us? Now that's way down the road. You know,
Yes,
that's not to think of for a long time. But as far as what I know is the way how AI is set up as far as artificial intelligence, it was actually meant to surpass us
Yes, of
as
course.
people to help us to go forward. Because it's believed that as far as being able to understand things and all that, from the design of our brain, it may be a bit limited. So now they're creating something artificial that has, so to speak, no limit.
Yes.
So it stands to reason that maybe in the future it will surpass us.
And that's the
So
that's
what
the
will
challenge.
happen then? I wonder.
Yeah, no, that's the challenge. You're right.
Anyways, it's just a thought.
Thank you. Sorry.
The way I look at it right now is that AI is something that's coming out, it's emerging. It's up to us as people to use this technology in a way that could benefit all of us.
Right.
Some people look at it this way, that AI possibly will take our places. But again, I would say it's up to us
Correct.
as to task it as to what it can do and what it shouldn't do.
They put limits on. I got you. Thank you, caller.
Take care.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Appreciate that. And that's actually a good question in terms of we talk about the advancement, how it can be used, and those type of things, right? But I guess from your perspective would be, what do you perceive as ultimate limitations? Both like what it should be. And recognize, obviously, you're a young person, but still, what's your perspective on that?
My perspective so far is that there's so many great things that it could do, and then there's, for me, it's the responsibility of the developer and also the people that are trying to use the technology as well. So some people are using it for like solving really good problems. Like I went to one conference in Paris, and I was expecting I met a little robot, and I talked about this on Friday, and it was like a little robot that I thought was autonomous because it was talking to me so naturally. It had like a slight accent, and I was like, oh, this is so cute. How did they do that? And then I found out it was an actual person that was talking to me through the robot. And it was because the person had been basically, it's a cafe in Japan where they have robot workers there, but the robots are piloted by people. So meaning like the people are controlling them, but the people doing that are all with physical or mental disabilities that make it impossible for them to leave the house.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, instead of them being stuck at home, they're able to actually work and go outside and go to the cafe and interact with people. So I was chatting with it, and then it was like, "Hi, my name is Kotonoha," and I was like, "Hi," and then I realized like, "Oh my goodness, it's a person." It was just a really cool way that AI was being used to really enhance people. And I think it's that kind of mindset and thinking that people that are developing the AI system should have. So when I think about limitations, I think like why replace things that aren't necessary to be replaced, like like a waitress at a cafe, that's somebody's job, versus like using it to enable and amplify somebody that maybe otherwise couldn't have been. Like if you're stuck at home, you can't get out.
Yes.
But the robot would allow you to do that. So it's like different aspects of AI that could really like enable and empower our community and society. And I think that those are the things we should be looking at rather than some of the more crazy things that some people are trying to work on that are, I feel, relatively unnecessary.
Sure. Okay. And so to round it out, we are past the magic hour, as I want to call it. And I guess what's most that's not quite right, but what's most active or most immediate for you is these courses.
Yes.
And so we talked about them in terms of one starts on Wednesday, one on Thursday.
Yes, one on Wednesday and one on Thursday, and then the student one is on Saturdays in the morning from
Okay.
9:30 to 11.
Okay. And where are they being held?
They're being held at the on 1 Church Street. So it's just across. It's that big white building right across from the 24-hour gas station.
On Church Street? Oh, it's on the other end.
Yes, on the other
okay.
end, sorry.
Yes, got it. Okay, fair
Right on the
enough.
other end.
So in that building, on which floor, or is it? Okay.
It's I'll send all the details
Sure.
to people, but like it's on the 6th floor.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I know what you mean. It's in the actual or the former Bermuda Business Development Agency
Yes.
office way up top.
Yeah.
Nice big space and that kind of
Yes.
thing. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you get the final word in this context in terms of what else do you want to tell people about you, the courses, whatever, what's happening next. I know about the robot piece. It's a secret, but we'll get that out. We found out about it rather, but go ahead.
You will find out about it in
Sure.
due time. But the courses are all, of course, if you head to our website, tomboloresearch.ai, so it's spelled TOMBOLO, research.ai. And I'd love for you to head there, learn more about the courses. Reach out to us if you have any questions about what we're doing here in Bermuda, what work we're doing in Dubai, and of course to join the courses. And another little, like, kind of just close to my heart thing is that I have this AI assistant on there. Her name is Lily. So if you
I saw a picture of her, by the way.
a lot of people like how she looks. Like, she's pretty attractive. But you know, if you go onto the website and you want to register for the courses, you can actually speak with her to register, which is something that I found really interesting. Is that people aren't used to that because it's an avatar that you can chat with to register rather than like having to type. So it's a lot easier to register with Lily than it is to fill out the form. So I want people to go online, talk to Lily to register for the courses, and then I will see you on Wednesday, Thursday, or even Saturday if you're a student.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, I will say thank you very much. Clearly quite informative in this whole new space. And even to the listening audience, right, it's a really big encouragement to know that many people are out there doing different things. And I'll go back to what you said earlier. We have to be very careful about how we convey different messages and information because you were discouraged from way back when, which is still playing for you, right? Thankfully, though, you were able to, through your mother, your grandfather, and others, develop a resilience that caused you to say, I'm not going to do it, but I'll do it elsewhere where it is more receptive. And even now, what I think is incredible is that you've come back to Bermuda. We always talk about trying to get Bermudans to come back home. You are now here, and you're developing your business or you're strengthening your business, even though it may be overseas, but you're still strengthening, and you are here. And obviously, you have expertise. And as a young person, the fact that you're actually here speaks volumes. And so I want to commend you, commend obviously your environment, your village, as it were, that continues to strengthen you. Obviously, your mother, Miss Angela Young. I'll get a shout out for her, and then she'll be thankful. She'll say thanks for that. But if I don't do that, that's a whole different conversation. So again, thank you again, and we look forward to the development. And clearly, we're open to have another conversation as you get further on, get to the point where you're actually ready to talk about this robot. Obviously, mentioning it without detail does pique our interest. That's a very good way of doing things. And so, as you say, having it in stealth mode. And to the listening audience, thank you for joining us here again on Magic 102.7 your Sunday evening for another wonderful show. Looking forward to next week. As I always close out, though, if you're out early or late, please wear a high visibility vest or light or something like that because it does make life easier. I'll close on this note also because I walk my dog early in the morning, and one day, for whatever reason, I forgot to wear a reflective vest. And it wasn't until I was out and about realized, hey, Anthony, you're doing what you told others not to do. But I was in a safe area. I was able to walk on the sidewalk, so it was safe. But again, my message to myself was, Anthony, you say this every week. Make sure as a fundamental that you do it yourself and obviously encourage others. And so, Bermuda, please, again, try or make up your mind to do something that's going to make somebody else smile or be happy, and you'll be surprised at the impact that it has on you. And so again, Bermuda, until next week, may God bless us all, and we carry on. Thank you, and thank you.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.